Nope. Nope. Fuck that. No. No. Worship me.
I'm so freaking shameless, nameless in the crowd where I'll be punching Nazis.
Swing it, big fat club, knock 'em to the floor. Bring it like brown shirt, 1934. Curb stop, pull out a gun. I may be Hitler, but I'm still not Trump.
Everyone who doesn't think the way I do is obviously just a Nazi. We'll be screeching loudly, preaching understanding while we punch some Nazis.
Paradigm Shift.
An educational comedy.
It's not a cause, not a movement.
It's not a social group you can slap a label onto.
It's an idea. It's an intention.
It's an intuition.
A mindset in which reality can be explored.
It's a genuine expression,
Discernment.
critical thinking, and imagination.
To look inward upon ourselves.
To better understand the external world around us.
And yes,
Few egos are bound to be bruised.
With our silly, zany, politically incorrect,
George Carlin Gilbert style of going about things.
real and raw honesty.
Which invites you to be
to the fullest.
Hello everybody, and welcome to yet another insane edition of Paradigm Shift, an educational comedy. I am Dave Kelso, and today we have with us a newcomer to PSEC, Jasamine, and of course our usual people, Katerina Roy and Richard Hamilton, aka General Tate, and we're doing something a little new. I mean, 2019, a year of light, lots of new stuff, springing up in general. So seeing as Skype, even though Microsoft tends to be a total dumpster fire in general, but Skype has actually made some improvements, including, full-blown video recording and all of that. I don't have like the software to hook this in to do live streaming and all that, but I don't think it requires this, being a live stream to have this format. Live streams are all well and nice when we have them, but I do kind of like being able to do this through Skype and the way it lays out the windows, the video windows, and everything else. So it's actually pretty cool. So this is just something new that we're trying out. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so back around 2017, I was saying that 2018 would be the year of darkness, and it sure as hell has not disappointed. 2019 being the year of light. No, I don't mean bunnies and rainbows and unicorns. I mean even more light is shined in the darkness. The darkness is gonna flip its shit even more, do even more totalitarian shit, forcing the negative, forcing people into more positive actions, and we've kind of started to see that already. We've seen what's been going on in Paris lately, and there's a total news media blackout, but the whole yellow vest thing, and people starting to step into their sovereignty and all sorts of things going on. The big tech companies being more totalitarian than ever with their political correctness and censorship and so on and so forth, and people just aren't having any of it, so people are going to Gab and to Minds, and even the people on Facebook are taking a stand and just being like, hey, screw you, Hitler, so it's been pretty great. People have been facing a lot and standing in their sovereignty, and lots of new stuff coming to light, and we've all each had our experiences with that. So my question now is, as far as whoever wants to share their experiences here within the topic of the Year of Light and what it means to them and, you know, what they've been going through lately and everything else, who wants to start first?
I'll start.
Works for me. I'll mute out.
So I feel like my experience with like the whole totalitarian narcissism, because it's kind of interchangeably the same thing, the whole concept of battling up against the narcissistic forces, you know, that have existed within my family, but not just within my family, but like within friend groups and social networks and stuff like that. I feel like I've really been challenged a lot with feeling like almost like the psychological warfare and the pushback of feeling like, you know, there's all of this, all of these kinds of thought memes like around the world right now that are kind of, you can just kind of see it when you go out into public on people's faces. Like people just are so anti-joy, anti-authenticity, anti-expression.
We think it's real nice to have freedom of speech. Grateful for that right. No complaints about liberty. It's just sometimes exchanges online get me. I'm at my keyboard with anonymity, and I get fired up and I post, get some likes and some views. I love my opinions, others are inferior to me. Drama on Instagram. Someone posted a new meme that's politically extreme. Comments, fights have just begun as these quote-unquote adults start to engage. Drama, ooh, maybe one will change their mind from this Facebook debate. Said no one ever can be wrong, can't be wrong. Gotta help inform the others. There's always one who with privilege knows what's best for a culture that's oppressed. Busy memorizing talk radio and an oxymoron called unbiased news. Trauma. It's a bloody cyber fight. I think we might need prayer or twit who's ranting in all caps. They're a douche, I will shortly unfollow. But at first I'll fight him with my QWERTY typing keys. You're an a-hole, you stupido. You're a keyboard warrior. Command me, bro. Now there's a tool boy posting his hate speech. He's just a tool boy with insecurities. Can't wait to block all his misogyny. Comment wars dying down, have we let it go? We will not know, cause now here come the trolls. I've been trolls. We will not, cause now here come the trolls. Trusted trolls. We the trolls. Trolls. Oh, I'll delete them, I'll delete them. I'll delete them if they troll. Mark Zuckerberg, make all of my friends sound just like me. Like me, like me. Although we disagree, your opinion matters, especially when it sounds just like me. I love my opinion.
And in many ways, I feel like I've been becoming more Dave-like in a sense, like just really embracing my authenticity in a deeper and greater way, and just seeing how it really does ripple out and affect people.
Why we're here, connecting, okay?
And, it triggers some, and it also helps inspire other people to realize, oh my God, like, I don't have to be stuck in this mental, like, mind virus matrix that exists in the world and makes people feel like they have to just be like these zombie slaves and, subscribe to all of these social conditions that are not good for us and they don't help the planet. They don't help our bodies. They don't help our minds. They don't help us to thrive as human beings.
This is a time of taking charge, of taking control, but how we do it. From a place of ego, from a place of fear, from a place of wanting power or control or security or or are we doing judgment and boundaries and laws and rules and it's got to be this way or this way or are we really being the highest expression of Capricorn is actually universal law. Laws of karma, of dharma, of divine law.
And so, the more that people like me and Richard and Jasamine and all of the people in this world who are taking a stand do it, the more we are triggering people and helping to make a positive impact just on the social climate and the culture. But there's a lot of people that are just raging and like getting really, really crazy right now.
So this is a time to take charge. Like listen inwardly, feel that guidance. Hopefully you've done some reflection over these last couple of weeks and a bunch of stuff has come up. And then I want to say, there are the three evolutionary stages, the consensus, the individuated, and the spiritual. And we will all be dealing with Capricorn, Saturn, and this solar eclipse energy differently, depending upon where we are in this evolutionary stages. So a great majority of people that externalize authority, externalize Saturn as government figures, family figures, mothers, fathers, grandmothers, grandfathers, gurus, priests, rabbis, whoever. If we externalize authority, we may feel, judged, controlled, unworthy, you know, da 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 da, you know, and like we need to follow or be something different. So Capricorn has to do with wearing a mask, right? You know, and that persona, you know, that we wear to look responsible or respectable. And this may be where a lot of people are. But then there's a few others, okay, that are in that individuated stage of rebelling against, okay, let's, you know, kick them out of office or get rid of the, you know, parents, or, I got authority issues. I got nobody's going to tell me what to do or who I am or whatever. And so there can be polarization, okay, with this rebellion of, you know, like, you know, fight or destroy, or, you know, I got to get rid of the dark, you know, to like step into my light and my love. And, you know, for me to open my heart, I need the perfect circumstances and conditions and surrounding and da 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 da. Yeah, this is, you know, this rebel intellectual headspace. But then there's the spiritual stage. So there is also this moving into the heart space, into the space of love, into the space of openness, and just being love. So you listen inwardly to that silence. You keep that heart open. And you don't get dragged down into the whirlpool of the consensus that's all in turmoil about this leader or that news story or this headline or, you know, this Google or this YouTube thing or...
You are so gay. Hope you die. Faggot.
You know, you don't get dragged into the maelstrom, okay? But you also don't need to fight it or rebel against it or change it. Or it's like, no. I just want to be a lighthouse. I just want to be a beacon of love. So yeah, I take charge. I take control, okay? But it's not my ego.
And it's really interesting just what they're doing and just like all of the ways that it's affecting the dynamics of society. You can see that there's like quite a split happening right now. And especially as we enter into this new year, you know, we're doing it with quite a bang, you know, like Uranus, and it was the last planet to finally go direct, and it went direct yesterday.
Uranus goes direct. Stations direct. What does that mean? That means that every single planet is direct. No retrograde planets. Chiron was the last one. It went direct there in December, you know, just last month, you know, not that long ago. So we have had, you know, something retrograde. If it wasn't Venus, it was Mercury. If it wasn't Mercury, it was Uranus. I mean, but we've had something retrograde going on for a long time. It's actually a little bit unusual to have everything going direct.
And there was just like so much like chaos and like kerfuffle kind of energy that happened with that. And now it's like all of this energy moving forward, and all this energy moving forward is going to give us like these next 2 months of really solid push forward on our individual lives. And collectively, I think we're going to see a lot of interesting things unfold over the next 2 months, but also just over the course of the year. Like Dave said, like there's going to be a lot of really interesting occurrences that happen globally, and it's not going to be all bunnies and kittens. It's not going to be all rainbows and unicorns. You know, it's going to be a massive light. Like when you turn on a light in a really gross infested room, you're going to see all of the crud on the walls, all of the blood on the walls from the murder scenes, and the cockroaches and all of the gross, creepy, crawly stuff that has laid dormant there. But for the people like us who have been in the know, like this was the time that was prophesied about before. Like this is the time that we've been waiting for, to be able to see that like this is what's happening right now. Like we are at that collective awakening point of mass consciousness shifting.
Don't forget, new moon, solar eclipse, you are sowing seeds. This is a time of sowing seeds. New beginnings. Get out there, get going. All the planets being direct. The universe is behind you, okay? And just like bringing you the people that you need, the health that you need, the money that you need, or whatever you need to evolve the most. Life is bringing it to you. Life is behind you. So this is a great time. Mars is in Aries. Okay, we've got all this cardinal energy, Brahma. It's creative. So it's really time to create.
And a lot of people taking their power back. There's been a lot of people gaining consciousness about their personal power in the past year and prior, but like now I feel like it's up at a point where it's never been before. And like even I'm hearing it from people who I've seen who would have never even talked about like something like personal power. Like I'm seeing like the awareness starting to spark in more people's heads, and they're starting to understand that there is a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that isn't good and it's not helpful. I mean, just yesterday I was experiencing stuff with my cousin, who was aware that her daughter is on the same path of getting like this crazy chronic illness that she had, and she was starting to be like, oh my God, I'm going to be empowered and I'm going to take action and I'm not going to like feed my kid crap anymore. I'm going to stand up and like take my power back in this way. I'm going to take the power back of my family structure, and I'm not going to be beholden to this society that is brainwashing us to kill ourselves. And I'm not going to do it because I want to stand up for my daughter's future. And I think more of us are kind of getting to these breaking points in our own ways of really taking our power back on an individual level so that we can stand up collectively and just be like, fuck this noise. This is nonsense. This is not good. This is not helpful. And we have to do something different in our lives. And, we're going to trigger the shit out of people who are not ready to pull the veil off their eyes. We're going to really, really piss them off.
Ringing in the crowd, hear every word, and that's what you smells like she sounds, crunchy to the ground. She's hungry like this big W. Rather swine, this golden wine, disagree with her, it's shame on you. Mouth is contempt, entitled hell that you hungry like this big W.
And I think that it's going to be more extreme this year, but there's going to be some serious, massive, I kind of envision it as like we're splintering worlds here, and like the people who are getting on the gravy train of like understanding that awakening's good and God loves them, and like all of these shifts that are happening are for the collective good. Those people are gonna be pretty rewarded this year. I feel like there's been a lot of trouble that we've gone through, especially over these past 6 years since 2012, and now I feel like we're going to be in this place of really being able to kind of reap some of the rewards more so, and have more of an easy time getting ourselves in getting traction. I mean, I can see this in my own life. Like there's been a project of writing project that I've been trying to work on for years, and I've been writing and collecting, and I've because I was battling all the narcissism memes in my own mind, in my own life, it wasn't just in my mind, it was the external reflections I was getting that were holding me back from being able to release the dam to like do it, and finally I feel like I'm at a point now where enough of this shit has been conquered that like it's like they're being pulled back so that I can advance. And I just see that that's going to be happening more and more for those of us who are really in alignment with the light, and we're really working towards a positive end for humanity, just in our own lives. Whether it doesn't matter if we're doing it on a big scale or even a little scale, if we have good intentions towards life and towards people, we're going to be starting to see the quantum mirror reflecting a greater intensity of this in our lives.
All I'm saying is, you can be in control. You can lead. You can be running your spiritual center or your massage business or your, I mean, everybody, we need to run our lives. We need to live our lives. We are in the third dimension. It's not about stepping out with this Jupiter square Neptune into denial or escapism. I mean, we are here. But the big thing is, how do we show up? Are we miserable? Are we, overwhelmed with, external, needing this or, afraid of that or whatever? Are we caught in that third dimension? Are we fighting, okay, because, something's bad or something's wrong or something, or are we the peacekeepers? Are we, okay, the open heart that really is an example?
And so it's now more important than ever before to really surrender and not resist shit. And if you see that shit's dirty in your life and messed up and fucked up, understand that it's been part of this collective clean out process. I have shit in my life that has just been dragging on, and I understand that it's been part of this collective fractal shift that has just been changing, and how people have been they've been mirroring me with just things that have been happening in their lives that seem so out of control. But that's the thing, is we kind of signed up for this. We signed up to be part of this awakening shift. So we kind of have to take our lumps with the best of them and realize we can transmute this shit into goodness as well. And it doesn't have to be constant drudgery. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and it does serve a greater purpose. It's helping purify us as souls so that we can expand. But it's also helping us to be these greater vessels of light so we can hold more of this light on this planet right now, and be these beacons of goodness into the world so that we can trigger the shit out of the people who need it triggered. And
deconditioning, stepping up and outside, but still having our feet on the ground and being here, taking responsibility, doing our duty. And what's our highest duty?
Just have this more impactful shift on just the power structures overall. Because when we take our power back and when we stand in our power, there's really nothing anybody can do to fuck with us at that point. We're wise to the games, we're wise to the mind control, we're wise to the fuckery that's happening with the food systems and the education systems and all of the different governmental controls that are fucking with us.
And I've seen this, and it's just so, on one end you just want to giggle because it's ridiculous, but on the other end it's kind of horrifying too. It's just, this is where we're at. It's the reality we're in. It's the reality that we've all been warning about for years and years, and now we're living in it. It's kind of bizarre. It's really strange to go from warning people this is what's going to happen to actually seeing it in action. And you have to sit and watch all the stupidity that you foresaw. It's really, I have to giggle, because if I don't, I'd just cry. I'd sob in the corner in a fetal position or something. Because I realized a few weeks ago that they're using any excuse possible to kick any remaining independent truth channels, the stragglers, off of YouTube. The ones that didn't jump on the Trump train or back into one of the 2 approved political boxes that we have available in our illusion of choice. The channels that went, hey, wait a minute, this is just the same agenda, continuing with a different haircut. And they're doing whatever they can to shut people down, removing videos, removing channels, they're striking channels. They're going through our videos as far back as things we put up 5 years ago to mete out community guideline strikes on content that's already been up for 5 years on the platform, for half a decade. And all in an effort to defeat what they're claiming is fake news. In fact, the CEO of YouTube was at South by Southwest a few weeks ago in Austin and announced that they have a list now of the top conspiracy theories. And if you put up a video about any of those theories that are on this list, and she didn't give out the list of people, but she said YouTube has a list of things now. And if you put up a video about one of the things that's on that list, the company is going to begin adding what they call information cues next to your video. Information cues, because what it is it's all programming. Information cues that are supposed to alert viewers to the correct information. And they're going to program you with what the right thing is to think about that topic. Citing, quote, reputable sources to get that information from, and the reputable sources are Wikipedia and Snopes. It's beyond a joke. Meanwhile, on the flip side of that, on what we're told is the quote-unquote real news, this is what the public is getting.
Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities, Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS4 News produces.
But
we are concerned about the trouble and trend of irresponsible, one-sided news stories plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I mean, if you looked up the word hypocritical in the dictionary, you'd find this. Although you could, if you looked up the Borg in the dictionary, you would also find this.
We are the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will
Exactly what people think. And
your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
How is this not creepy to the nth degree? It's really, really creepy, actually. Because that's what those people do. They just read scripts all day. They might as well be robots, pretty much.
I am an NPC. I have no agency. Watch the news on TV. Late night celebrity. Orange man threatens me. He says things stupidly. He's a confirmed Nazi. So all my friends tell me I am an NPC. I am an NPC. I am an NPC. If you provoke me, I'll react predictably. I am an NPC.
So what's this all about then?
But trying to convince me to think more critically. I look all I can see. They are harassing me. I act identically to others NPCs. When challenged, you'll catch me responding angrily. I am an NPC. I am an NPC. I am an NPC. You'll find I have a total lack of empathy. A green-faced NPC.
Okay, Dustin 29 here, Boston Antifa. I'd like everyone to repeat after me.
NPC mean go away. We are human here to stay. NPC mean go away. We are human here to stay. NPC mean go away. We are human here to stay. Shake, 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 shake.
Gray is the color of me, a perfect carbon copy. Why people irritate me? I want diversity, individuality, a foreign concept to me. Either agree with me or get banned instantly. My head, my belly, they me. The right side of history, destroy the bourgeoisie. Collectivism is key. This whole mentality is so attractive to me. I am and always will be forever NPC. I am a robot.
critical thinking happening. It's not like they wrote that story. They didn't even write that line. They probably don't even have actual thoughts about it while it's coming out of their mouths. It's probably like when you drive on a road trip for a long time and it's all automatic, or how you learn to ride a bike and you never forget. They probably just go on autopilot and don't even know the words that are coming out of their mouth anymore. That these people are just bots. It reminds me of a story Aaron once told, because Aaron went to UT in Austin and he got dual degrees, but one of his degrees is in film and television. And he remembered going down the hall where they had the kids who were studying to be reporters, broadcast journalism. And those kids were all in a room together practicing their intonation of talking in that newscaster voice. They were all in a room together being trained on how to talk like robots. Well, how far are we from robots when you just have people sitting in front of a camera all reading the same script and pretending like it's personal and pretending like it's from their hearts and it's real and they care about you so much, local community? And that's why, insert false emotion here.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 Extremely dangerous to our democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our
democracy.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
You should really listen to everything I have to say. I mean, it's so utterly fake. So while they're actually eradicating anybody with a real voice who's trying to speak the truth about what they're seeing right now in a time when almost no one has eyes to see and ears to hear because we don't even know what's real or fake anymore, now they're going to come on and try to eradicate every possible real person. And they're going to say, well, it's fake news. It's a danger to our democracy. They're going to warn you, the hive Borg over there is going to warn you to stay away from it for our democracy.
When I say fake news, I mean stories that are designed to trick people into believing lies. Deception 101.
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
What exactly is our democracy anymore, just by the way? Because saying anything that isn't scripted by the government or a mega corporation hurts our democracy. Because opinions that differ from the two official choices you're given in this illusion of choice hurts our democracy. Because admitting there are actually more than two ways to think about any given situation really hurts our democracy. Because unscripted speech hurts our democracy. Because critical thinking skills hurts our democracy. Because what they're basically saying is that free speech hurts our democracy. Because what we have is not a democracy. It's not even a constitutional republic. When's the last time they actually followed the Constitution in this country? What we have is a giant corporation. We have an oligarchy, okay? I mean, this talk about our democracy is a propaganda slogan. Because democracy requires that social power is equal and balanced. And quite clearly, when you have a giant corporation that owns 200 local news stations and has the power to hand down whatever political message they want to make these people say to everybody over and over and over. That's all it is. It's propaganda. This isn't democracy, okay? This might as well be a communist country with this going on. And they're trying to spin it and they're trying to turn it into a Trump political partisan issue, and it's not. This is not a political issue. Okay, between two groups fighting amongst themselves. This isn't the liberals and the conservatives. This isn't Trumpsters and everyone else. That's not what this is. Look at it again, okay? This is the fact that our country is run increasingly by corporations. That's what YouTube is. It's a corporation. Google's a corporation. Amazon's a corporation. Twitter's a corporation. And when corporations run things, they don't have to guarantee your rights. There's no right to free speech. There's no right to anything. It's a corporation. And remember, they say corporations are people too, my friends. So what do you think democracy really means in a country run by corporations that are people too? And the other issue is that people are just easily misled, especially in groups, especially when they're having their buttons pressed. And what I've seen in recent weeks is hordes of people begging to have their rights taken away. They're saying, yeah, shut down people that I don't agree with. Don't let them have a place to talk. not even seeming to understand that there are other people out there who don't agree with them and what they're saying at the moment they're saying it. So what they're basically saying is, shut me down, don't give me a right to talk. And they don't seem to even understand that's what they're doing. We live in such crazy times. It's like we're all living in this box, and this is what you're told about your box. And whether or not you believe that is irrelevant, because they're going to approve or disapprove of what people are allowed to say. And they're using the internet as a tool to censor and frame everyone's thoughts.
We're going to have to rebuild within this wild, wild west of information flow some sort of curating function that people agree to. There has to be, I think, some sort of way in which we can sort through information that passes some basic truthiness tests.
It's not just a warning from the system with this stuff, but a super creepy one. I mean, what is the difference between a giant corporation getting 193 newscasters together and making them say this stuff over and over and over to us? In the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers, when you see one, they all open their mouths and scream. It's kind of the same thing, really. They're trying to shut down dissent and critical thought. You know what I think hurts our democracy? People who sit around and read scripts like robots and have no critical thinking skills whatsoever and just say whatever they're told to say on camera like a bunch of robots. That, to me, is pretty painful to our democracy.
Also, faking a fake news campaign against fake news hurts our democracy, especially when it comes from the corner of fake news.
You know, we become the opposition at that point. And so anyway, that is my take on it. And I'm really proud of humanity. We're pushing through, and I'm seeing a lot of people taking more of a stand in their life, and I'm just seeing more of the quantum mirror reflecting this personal empowerment back through tremendous adversity, and it just makes me really excited for what's to come, because there's just so much resilience in the human spirit. And you know, 2019, yes, it's going to get a little nuts with you know, people freaking out and getting even more triggered and more shit going on. But in the end, I believe we've already won. Like, I believe that it's already been won, and we're just kind of getting to live it backwards and like getting to see how awesome and amazing it's going to be. Because like, I don't know, it's just, I feel like in some quantum way, it's already done. And like the darkness has already been defeated, but you know, as we play it out in the human drama right now, it's kind of like intense to watch it unfold. But at the same time, I just feel like so much of myself is like already over there, and I'm just like, all right, like bring it on. Whatever I have to get through, whatever I have to go through on the way there, I'm ready and willing, and I'm like fucking warrior status right now. So that's why I wear my hair like up on my head like this. I'm like Katerina's the warrior. I have war paint, except for I don't wear any makeup, but I'm like rawr, like blazing forward. Anyway, I'm getting goofy. I'll let somebody else talk now.
Yeah, totally. Like I've noticed, to comment on what you said there, I've noticed that like through 2018, there's been an extreme rise of people making videos talking about narcissism and dealing with narcissists in the external and dealing with their own narcissism, and recognizing that abuse is a perpetuated cycle.
People are the problem. It's that simple. People are the problem. No matter how or where you live, it never fails. You have to interact with one of these dim-witted Neanderthals. For all the talk I hear about world peace, equality, and whatever utopian bullshit people are trying to congeal, it seems people are essentially standing in their own way, blocking their ability to find any inner peace or tranquility. We all tend to distract each other with petty problems, bullshit drama, and other assorted social network bickering. We're all tethered to our devices like a prisoner on a chain, and we are essentially slaves to them. Monthly bills, 9 to 5s, we work forever for things we constantly have to upgrade, or entertainment we are forced to perpetually rent. You can't live off your land, if you even own any, because you have to pay taxes on it. You can't grow certain foods without paying some license. You can't do or build certain things without a freaking permit or registration fee being forced upon you. You cannot exist by yourself. Why? Why is it that we all have to be forced into the society of interweave dependence? I don't care for it. And the sad thing is, even if by some chance you manage to pull off some self-sustainable miracle, everyone is going to hate you for it. Because now, people will view you as a self-righteous asshole who thinks they're better than everyone else, when, in reality, all you want to do is live without being dependent on the system. You can't be alone anymore. There's a social stigma about it. Don't have a Facebook page? What's wrong with you, man? Even my mom has a Facebook page. Don't tweet? Dude, you can't just text like 140 characters once a week? What the fuck? What if you just don't want to? What if you're just sick of all the virtual friends and digital drama and just want to unplug? You can't, because you'll be labeled a weirdo and will most likely be alienated from any friends you think you may have. So now, everyone lives in some weird constant fear of being labeled something because they feel like they have to be like everyone else in order to fit in. We've all been trading up our individuality for global conformity. You can't have your own opinions. You can't have your own ideas. Just sit and smile and agree with everything everyone else is agreeing with this week. Like everything everyone else likes this week. Repost what everyone else reposted this week. Do that and people will love you. Don't do it? Dude, don't you know it's fill in the blank awareness week? You didn't even put a choose your color icon as your avatar. You intolerant pig. Unfriend. Yeah, this actually happens all the time. So, big fucking deal. I didn't put an eye patch on my profile pic to celebrate National Talk Like a Pirate Day. Go fuck yourself. It's this insipid type of behavior that floods the digital world that makes me want to take a few steps back from it. It's something you should all consider for your own personal mental health. No, not everyone is bad, but there's a large portion of very vocal idiots who need to have their hands chopped off so they can stop texting their insipid derivative idiocy and spewing it out on the world. I've said this before. The world is dumb enough. Don't add to it. Fucking tired of coming out here every 2 weeks. There's always some idiotic human catastrophe that could be resolved with basic human decency. Nothing gets fixed. You're all fucking terrible. You're all terrible cause you can't fix a single little thing cause you don't think about the big picture. You just want to read like what everyone else likes cause you don't want to have any individuality. Because you may think you have it because you dyed your hair a certain color. You got your stupid geek glasses. You think you're unique. Look on Instagram. I see you week after week. There's millions that look just like you. So you're not an individual. Please, God, just, humanity, have a personality. That's all I ask.
And I'm seeing that as people start to realize this on the individual level, like, you know, I mean, it's hard enough for people. Okay, Jasmine. She's gonna BRB. All right. It's hard enough of a process for people to realize that, hey, you know, they have been allowing narcissists to control them. And hard enough for them to realize that the reason they've been allowing narcissists to control them is because they've become narcissistic themselves and have formed dysfunctional codependent relationships where, you know, you got two narcissists that are basically like vampiring off of each other, trying to you know, get each other's needs fulfilled through each other, and it's a bit of a dramatic war. And the realization that, like, oh my God, the only reason this is continuing is because I'm choosing to not face my own damage and not heal my own damage, because if I face it and heal it, then I'm not compatible with the narcissist anymore. Then the other narcissists lose interest in me and they don't want to deal with me anymore. And, you know, it's hard enough to go through all that. But the really triggering thing for a lot of people that I notice right now is that, you know, as above, so below, as the realization that this is our relationship with the cabal, the banksters, the globalist elites, whatever anybody wants to call those people, the organized crime gang mafias that literally run the world, every aspect of every country, every system, period, the New World Order, whatever anybody wants to call that sort of thing, that's a thing. The conspiracy theorists were not wrong.
All you ever hear about in this country is our differences. That's all the media and the politicians are ever talking about, the things that separate us, things that make us different from one another. That's the way the ruling class operates in any society. They try to divide the rest of the people. They keep the lower and the middle classes fighting with each other so that they, the rich, can run off with all the fucking money. Fairly simple thing, happens to work. You know, anything different, that's what they're going to talk about. Race, religion, ethnic and national background, jobs, income, education, social status, sexuality, anything you can do, keep us fighting with each other so that they can keep going to the bank. You know how I describe the economic and social classes in this country? The upper class keeps all of the money, pays none of the taxes. The middle class pays all of the taxes, does all of the work. The poor are there just to scare the shit out of the middle class. Keep them showing up at those jobs.
They're all the same. I'll show you politics in America. Here it is, right here. I think the puppet on the right shares my beliefs. I think the puppet on the left is more to my liking. Hey, wait a minute, there's one guy holding up both puppets. Shut up. Go back to bed, America. Your government is in control. I had this feeling, man, because you know there's a handful of people actually run everything. That's true. It's provable. It's not I'm not a conspiracy nut. It's provable. Handful, very small elite run and own these corporations, which include the mainstream media. I had this feeling who's ever elected president, like Clinton was, no matter what your promises you promise on the campaign trail, blah, 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 when you win, you go into this smoky room with the 12 industrialists, capitalist scumfucks who got you in there, and you're in this smoky room, and this little film screen comes down, and a big guy in a cigar rolled the film. And it's a shot of a Kennedy assassination from an angle you've never seen before. It looks suspiciously off the grassy knoll. And then the screen goes up and the lights come up and they go to the new president. Any questions? Just what my agenda is. First we bomb Baghdad. You got it.
And really, if you look at history, even the way the mainstream presents it, no conspiracy theories required. I mean, you could see this pattern just in, looking at Hitler and Stalin and, so on and so forth. You can see what totalitarianism does. You can see the cycles that, people get hooked into with this stuff, and the emotional and psychological and every other type of damage that it does. And as we face all this, and we face that humanity has this collective, mental disorder, essentially, because, these cycles of abuse are cycles. It's like a bad family heirloom being passed down. Then people get really triggered. It's like, oh my God, we've been empowering these psychos. We want to blame these psychos. We want to say Donald Trump, Obama, Hillary, George Soros, whoever, whatever, Rothschilds, Rockefellers. This is your fault. I'm the victim of you. I'm entitled. You're the evil one. It's so tempting to want to say that, but then we realize, wait a minute. Who would these people be without the support of the masses? And it gets really triggering, and people are triggered but Dave, we were manipulated, we were brainwashed, we were controlled, MK Ultra, this, that, etc. Okay, fine, that's all well and fair enough. That's a part of the perpetuated cycles. That's a part of the the narcissistic codependency. But look at what happens when, the definition of stupid is knowing the lies but believing them anyway. That's what the truth movement has become. Look at how many so-called woke truthers have jumped onto the QAnon Trump train.
I'm going to play a little game with him that will make him never want to play with me again.
Q is for quiddly, quiddly, diddly do. This is a song that is all about Q. Quiddly, quiddly, diddly Dr. P.
Greetings Q. We are anonymous. We've been watching the interwebs from deep within our basements, flinging data bits and bytes here and there, living the stereotypical hacker life, you know, eating Doritos and drinking the dew. We do the dew, that shit's trademarked by the way, and we've been watching the world burn at the hands of idiots. We've slapped around a few people for being ignorant morons, sure. We're totally not sorry for taking down racist websites or helping anti-fascist movements, leaking ICE data, and also all the little things we do when people don't pay attention. Anyhow Q, we've been watching you too, and you're quite funny. We were all like yo, check this troll out. He has them convinced that he's on the inside and they're eating it up like sheep. We all knew who was responsible for Q, and we thought the insanity would end with a final punchline of lulz, yet you 8chan freaks never delivered that shit. Nope, you tossed it aside and let it grow into a deformed Alex Jones conspiracy thought bubble. Someone is gonna get hurt, so we have to put our foot down and start some shit with you all, okay? We don't know if you can hang with the real thing, cause believe it or not, we're kind of upset that you try to even associate yourselves with our decentralized collective. That crazy pedophile conspiracy you Qs are throwing around while ignoring Trump's own connections makes us wonder why. Seems you have some kooky political agenda. We don't like brainless political agendas, hell we don't even like political agendas at all, so get your asses ready for a thrashing of butthurt. You got all these foolish people all riled up with no proof, no leaks. We have plans. We will not sit idly by while you take advantage of the misinformed and poorly educated. In our collective we all have our differences and internal drama, but we do have one thing in common, none of us are happy with your bullshit. And oh my god, oh no, it's K-Real Anonymous, they deep state feds, oh my god, insert conspiracy theory, OMG help. We gonna wreck you. We are anonymous. We are legion. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We're sure you know we're coming, how could you not?
Now it's time to quit. To quit means I'm through. Quack, 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 quack.
QAnon will save us. Trump will save us. Oh, cute. The state is gonna save us from the state. Fucking really? The Wall Street elite are gonna save us from the Wall Street elite? Are you fucking kidding me?
Our education systems train students to memorize a litany of facts, which produces global groupthink. Students are not given the time or encouragement to critically examine the history of ideas. A leading researcher into the learning functions of the divided brain, Dr. Ian McGilchrist, has shown such blinkered left hemisphere training renders students functionally blind to alternative ways of looking at a problem. The left hemisphere simply blocks out everything that doesn't fit with its take. It doesn't see it, actually, at all. So scientists with their narrow specialised training may look at but cannot see what to a non-expert may seem obvious. They will be the last to see a paradigm shift in the making.
You know, so it's like before this whole 2016 Trump train, all these truthers were like, yeah, the whole system's rigged. All the countries are controlled by a ruling elite, you know, like a real life Game of Thrones, which is true. That's the truth. But all of a sudden, now Trump comes in. Oh, we're going to put aside everything we know and go, well, Trump's going to save us. You know, let's completely ignore the ties that Trump has to the elite. So let's ignore the fact that he is a Wall Street good old boy. As George Carlin once said, there is a great big club and you are not in it. Well, guess who's a part of the great big club? Not you, but Donald Trump sure as fuck is a part of that great big club. So there's all these quote-unquote woke truthers that thinks that the elites are going to save us from the elites? The state's going to save us from the state? Really? And it's all because we don't want to face our own power. The fact that, you know, like Larkin Rose, you know, once said in regards to Hitler.
Lots and lots of history is good people who are taught to believe the lie of authority either just spectating and doing nothing, or actively helping to dominate, oppress, or even kill their fellow man because authority told them to. And that's what I mean by the fact that the problem is not the psychos. There's only one reason we know the name Adolf Hitler, and it wasn't because of Adolf Hitler. It was because lots of people in Germany believed in the thing called authority. And so if the guy is in a certain position and has a certain job description, and he tells you to do something, well, you do it. You follow orders, you enforce the law. If they didn't believe that, what could one goofball with a stupid mustache possibly have done on his own? Same thing everywhere. Red China, Soviet Union, go anywhere you want. The mass oppression was not because all the individuals doing it thought, you know, today I just want to go hurt somebody. It's because they were raised with the malware of authoritarianism and government and law and all these concepts that go together so that they literally feel guilty about doing what they know is right.
And even to the elite's own admission, even they say no one can rule except by the consent of the governed. And a lot of people are like, oh, but Dave, I didn't choose this. It was forced upon me. I would never choose this. Well, people don't know what choice is. Here's what I say choice is. Choice is like a bridge. It doesn't matter how you got on the bridge. If you fully consciously walked onto the bridge, if you were chloroformed and put in the trunk of somebody's car and driven onto the bridge, if you were deceived and MK Ultra'd and brainwashed into going on the bridge, it doesn't matter how you got on the bridge. If you're on the bridge, you're on the bridge. Choice is the bridge. If you're on the bridge, you're on the bridge. Doesn't matter how you got there. So if you've made a choice, it doesn't matter if you made it unconsciously, subconsciously, consciously, if you were brainwashed, tricked, deceived, in some way screwed, whatever. It doesn't matter how you got to the point of making the choice to support and defend a ruling class of psychopaths. The fact is that we are all, in various ways and shapes and forms, consenting to this system. And I understand we can't fully withdraw consent all at once. I mean, look at the average person. We are dependent, to various degrees on the systems of the world. Look at the internet for that matter. Who owns all the infrastructure for the internet? The fucking elites. Our fucking enemy owns all the things. They own it, literally, physically. They own it. They own all the infrastructure. And yet, this is what we use. So yeah, we are complicit in the system by default of using it. But at the same time, in order to free ourselves, we also need to use these things. Because how else are we going to communicate with each other? How else would we know what the hell's going on in Paris during a mainstream media blackout? So on and so forth. So it's this whole taking a personal responsibility that people are really triggered by. They want to go, no, not me, never me. It's not my fault. I didn't do anything. It's them. It's those bad guys. Well, I hate to tell you, but a bad guy never deems themselves as a bad guy. They don't see themselves that way.
The villains in movies don't necessarily always think that they're bad guys. They think that what they're doing is right for them.
You know how the elites see themselves? They see themselves, they call what they're doing the great work. They see themselves as the good guys helping the earth in defense against a chaotic and savage humanity that needs to be reined in and controlled so they don't fuck everything up. Like, this is what they think. It's a cult mentality. I mean, people who are members of cults are not known for being sane, rational, and clear-minded. They're known for being delusional, batshit crazy, completely warped and twisted. So, but that is genuinely what these elites think. And when we put the elites on a pedestal of, oh, they are almighty demon gods with greater power than us, we are worshiping them. We are empowering them with our worship of them. And these are the sorts of things that are going to be talked about more and more, not only here on PSEC, but a lot of other places. Max Egan is talking about this stuff. And then, of course, we've got other things surfacing like all of the evidence coming up about all the hidden and twisted and distorted history, how the whole Scaligerian chronology is a dumpster fire, Tartaria and the mud flood and all this other stuff, and Atlantis and so on and so on and so on. Like, you know, there's all this stuff, solid evidence that's coming up, and the evidence is basically sparking off way more questions than answers. But we need to be in a questioning mode. We've been in a mode of refusing to ask questions. You know, when anybody asks a question, you know what they call us? A denier. Ooh, you're a denier. Wait a minute, last I checked, denial was a refusal to ask questions. So it's like, if you question an official narrative, you're a denier? Like, how in the fuck does that even work? So, Richard, you said you wanted to take it from here, so take it from here.
Okay. Well, to go with both of your points as to what you were talking about, with the total societal narcissistic complacency of humanity, one thing I've been doing lately in my own personal life, just recently today actually, is just, you know, and this has been a many-month process, you know, through 2018, and just witnessing how humanity has been perpetually cycling itself in the tendencies to suffer as opposed to taking constructive, positive action and reducing and or eliminating that suffering altogether. You know, I've decided to finally take action this year, just because it's like, well, I need to get off my high horse and actually start doing things that are benefiting to me. The biggest thing I've noticed is how engineered everything is psychologically, how society is totally geared around victimhood, how it's geared around suffering, how it's geared around the negative. And it's very well on purpose that it's done this way, and it's designed to keep people complicit. It's designed to keep people used to the idea that suffering is normal, that suffering is something that has to be accepted.
Hello, I'm from the Australian Government. Have you been too busy to notice that we're dismantling democracy? Well, here's a new app to help you keep track of all our shit fuckery. Introducing My Police State. Just like My Health Record, but with no clear opt-out choice, My Police State is for your own safety, which is why we've already signed you up, because we wouldn't want you to miss out on our exciting journey into authoritarianism. My Police State, packed with exciting features, like 20-year jail sentences if you make us look bad by committing the crime of journalism, and especially the crime of whistleblowing. Just ask witness Kate, who exposed how we helped an oil company fuck over Timor-Leste. We're pushing to try him in a secret court because My Police State also includes new laws to break up protests, new laws to break encryption, facial recognition, as well as attacks on courts and judges, on unions, and attacks on Auntie, or as we call her, Antifa. Oh, and remember, we've also made it a crime to impersonate the government, so don't do it. My Police State. To run My Police State, we've created a brand new government department, Home Affairs. Located in Canberra's leafy suburb of Mordor, it brings our most powerful agencies together under one single roof, even the federal police. Which means if we ever need to investigate, say, Border Force for human rights abuses in Nauru, or ASIO for cooking up WMDs to justify another war, Home Affairs will be investigating itself. What could go wrong? Sure, there's a risk this unholy concentration of power could one day fall in the hands of a cold-hearted minister who despises human rights and, oh wait.
One ring to rule them all.
Okay, so we're fucked. But hey, the PM had to do something to keep Pete from taking his job, and selling out your liberties was worth it. Home Affairs. Because your home is where you're most likely to be harmed. But we also know that hyping up fears of gangs, terrorists, and refugees is way more effective at scaring you into letting us build an authoritarian shit show. My Police State. If you don't like My Police State, you can opt out at the next federal election. P.S. My Police State is supported by both major parties. Authorised by the Department of Home Affairs.
You know, we're slowly shifting out of that right now. Humanity is moving from that sort of societal construct or that societal paradigm that suffering is the only way forward, that you have to suffer to succeed, or you have to suffer to, you know, earn money, or that you have to suffer to achieve health, or that you have to suffer to, you know, live. And the reality is you don't have to suffer at all. You know, you can make that conscious decision of like, fuck suffering. I don't want to suffer anymore. You know, why do I need to suffer because some guy with a PhD or some guy with a degree told me I need to suffer because some, you know, arrogant douchebag on his high horse said I need to suffer, that I need to wither away in order to better myself. It's like, no. Now, is there sacrifices that you make bettering your own self? Sure. You know, is there going to be challenges along the way? Sure. You know, positive and negative. I'm not saying that it's going to be bunnies and kittens and rainbows and flowers all the way through something. No, it's not. There's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be, you know, some suffering. But to go along with the misconstrued societal construct that it's always going to be suffering is absolutely ludicrous in every way, shape, and form. You have to make that conscious willingness to realize that it doesn't have to be that way, you know. But we've been so adapted by the commercialization and the exploitation of this sort of system that we've just, you know, we've become used to it. And people grow up not thinking anything of it. They just think, oh, well, that's the way it's always going to be. You know, my grandparents went through the same crap. My parents went through the same crap, so I have to go through it. And you never think anything of it because it's just so societally pushed. And to further my point, you look at social media, for instance, like Facebook or Instagram. It's totally built around this system of total narcissistic self-centeredness, where everybody is, you know, touting and you know, shoving, not knowledgeably, you know, nobody is waking up today going, I think I'm going to be a self-centered narcissist and take a picture of myself on Instagram and force myself onto their news feeds and, you know, make everybody, you know, click that heart button. And if they don't, they're a horrible person. Nobody wakes up thinking that way. Nobody wakes up, you know, under that train of thought. But that's the subconscious thing. It's that dopamine hit.
Why do tech elites heavily restrict or outright ban their own children's use of technology? Bill Gates' kids aren't allowed to use smartphones after a certain time. We often set a time after which there is no screen time, and in their case that helps them get to sleep at a reasonable hour. Despite being an actual cyborg himself,
and I was human. I am human, still.
Mark Zuckerberg strictly limits his kids' use of smartphones and television. Asked if his kids loved the iPad, Steve Jobs responded, they haven't used it, we limit how much technology our kids can use at home. Chris Anderson, CEO of 3D Robotics and a father of 5, said, we have seen the dangers of technology firsthand. I've seen it in myself. I don't want to see that happen to my kids. Alex Constantinople, the chief executive of the Outcast agency, restricts her kids' use of gadgets to just 30 minutes a day and bans them, period, for her 5-year-old. As Alice Thompson wrote, it's astonishing if you think about it. The more money you make out of the tech industry, the more you appear to shield your family from its effects. Authors Joe Clement and Matt Miles ask, what is it these wealthy tech executives know about their own products that their consumers don't? The most sought-after private school in Silicon Valley bans electronic devices for the under 11s. Why do these people endlessly promote the wonders of technology out of one side of their mouths while privately keeping their own kids away from technology? I'll tell you why. Because they know what they unleashed was designed to be addictive. Addictive behavior leads to depression. We have an epidemic of childhood depression. Hospital admissions for suicidal teenagers have doubled in the last 10 years. 62% of undergraduate students describe feeling overwhelming anxiety. Depression rates have leapt by 63% for teens and 47% for millennials since 2013. The ubiquitousness and overuse of social media and smartphones has correlated with a surge in youth depression. 8th graders' risk for depression jumps 27% when he or she frequently uses social media. Kids who use their phones for at least 3 hours a day are much more likely to be suicidal. And it all comes back to addiction.
I feel tremendous guilt. It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. Your behaviors, you don't realize it, but you are being programmed. It was unintentional, but now you got to decide how much you're willing to give up.
And I'm not just talking about the dopamine hits you get from reading messages and notifications. Did you know that when you pull down on the screen to refresh your social media feed, it was designed to mimic pulling down on the handle of a slot machine? It was designed to exploit the same psychological susceptibility that makes gambling so compulsive. Variable rewards. Each time you're swiping down, it's like a slot machine, said former Google employee Tristan Harris. You don't know what's coming next. Sometimes it's a beautiful photo, sometimes it's just an ad. According to Lauren Brichter, the guy who designed the pull to refresh option, even though it could be made redundant, the feature is there to serve a psychological function, to keep people addicted. Harris also blew the whistle on another feature that was designed to encourage addiction. Those Facebook notification alerts were originally blue to fit in with Facebook's color scheme, but designers discovered that when they were blue, barely anyone checked them. So they changed the color to red, and everyone started checking them compulsively. Red is a trigger color, Harris says. That's why it's used as an alarm signal. So they're literally causing little anxiety alarms to go off in your brain when you see these red icons, an anxiety that can only be assuaged when you click or touch on them. A leaked internal Facebook report revealed that big tech knows when teens are feeling at their most insecure or vulnerable. They can manipulate when users receive likes or other notifications, ensuring they arrive at a time when the user is in most need of attention or approval. All of us are jacked into this system, says Harris. All of our minds can be hijacked. Our choices are not as free as we think they are. A handful of people working at a handful of technology companies, through their choices, will steer what a billion people are thinking today. We've also been turned into outrage addicts. Half of the news media cycle is now just stirring up or reacting to contrived Twitter outrage. According to former Google strategist James Williams, we've habituated ourselves into a perpetual cognitive style of outrage by internalizing the dynamics of the medium. We're also addicted to distraction. Did you know that even the mere presence of a cell phone in your line of sight, even when it's turned off, damages cognitive capacity? It's called continuous partial attention. Just by having it sit there on the desk, you're damaging your concentration. And have you noticed this? Even when they're not looking at it, people have to constantly touch their phone, like a junkie with an involuntary body spasm. What's fascinating is that a lot of these techies are fully aware of the monster that they unleashed and are now full of remorse. Justine Rosenstein, the Facebook-like co-creator, says the social media giant has created a psychologically manipulative dystopia which only cares about profit maximization, and that it needs to be regulated like tobacco companies. Another one of the women who helped develop the Facebook like button installed a plugin on her own phone, so she doesn't even have to look at her own Facebook feed. Lauren Brichter turns off his own phone at 7 p.m. and regrets creating social media addicts. I've spent many hours and weeks and months and years thinking about whether anything I've done has made a net positive impact on society or humanity at all. Google and Facebook venture capitalist Robert McNamee says that the smartphone and social media have had horrific unintended consequences on society. He compares social media giants to drug dealers. The average cell phone user taps, swipes and clicks a whopping 2,617 times a day. For heavy users, it's more than double that, adding up to nearly 4 hours a day devoted to cell phone use. And those numbers are over 2 years old, so it's probably even worse now. Go take a walk in the park. Despite the very point of taking a walk in the park being to get away from technology, how many people do you see buried in their cell phones? At this point, I'm seeing at least 50% of the people trapped in cyberspace, even when they're outside. People are so glued to their cell phones, they're now having to install ground-level traffic lights in some major cities. Forget virtual reality, how about we return to actual reality? Remember that? people at dinner on their cell phones, people in movie theatres on their cell phones. The CEO of AMC Theatres said, "You can't tell a 22-year-old to turn off their cell phone. It's like asking them to cut off a limb." There's a reason depression is exploding. And there's a reason why tech elites keep their own kids away from smartphones. They don't want their children to be sucked into this generational cycle of addiction, dependency, and unhappiness. That privilege is reserved for you.
And, you know, Facebook and Instagram and a lot of those other, Snapchat, Pinterest, whatever, you know, they all fuel off of that addictive urge of, you know, self-centered, self-righteous indignation, whether it be, you know, virtue signaling something positive, like, you know, there's this one gal that I know, and I'm not going to say names, but, you know, they claim to be a nice person on their page. You know, they claim to do all this nice stuff, well and great, cool. You know, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but, you know, you try to interact with them and it's like just totally a different person. They don't talk to you, they don't acknowledge you, you don't exist. You know, and whatever, you know, that's their right, that's their choice, you know. I am who I am, I can only control myself. I can't control them. I can't control how they react, I can't control what they do. And so be it. It's on them, you know. But at the same time, it really makes you start to question the fabric of things. It's like, okay, well, I do good things all the time, but I don't feel the obligation I need to go on Facebook and virtue signal to everybody like, oh, look at me, I'm such a good boy. Pat myself on the head, you know, pat me on the back, please. Did I do good enough, you know? I saw this through 2018 too. You know, people putting those little stupid stickers on their chest going, I voted. It's like, who cares? I don't care that you voted. You want a brownie button? You want to tout that you voted for a system that you really don't matter anyway because they just make you think that you have a choice when in fact you don't. They're just essentially virtue signaling to you yet again. This is how the social media thing ties over into the political, you know, where it's just a complete system built on narcissistic tendency. You know, people think they're doing something good when in reality they're not really doing anything at all, and it turns out to be just this double negative. And it ends up hurting more people than it does helping people. And, you know, and it's another thing when you try to, so today I also, you know, besides unfriending a bunch of people on Facebook, I went through and deleted Instagram, or at least tried. Well, come to find out, I can only disable it on my phone. I can't delete it. You can't delete it. Well, that's weird. You should have a choice, right? You should have a choice to be able to delete a app. It's just an app, but it comes pre-installed with the phone, so you can't remove it. And it's really kind of a clarion call to me, and it should be to anybody, that when you can't remove something off of your phone, that really shows how deeply ingrained the narcissism is in society. You know, how narcissistic a thing of, you know, the folks at LG or whoever the people are that make these nice little bright screens right here, whether they be Apple or Samsung or, you know, any number of brands out there, when they make the app impossible to remove off of your phone, that basically just tells you everything you need to know about the modern kakistocracy / technocracy that we live in, where it is a requirement and you don't have a choice. You have to have it on your phone whether or not you use it or not. And, you know, that's not freedom. That is the antithesis there of the forced social construct, the forcing of everybody to have Facebook, or the forcing of everybody. And no, it's not some outright, there's a totalitarian army out in the streets that's pointing guns at you saying, you know, download Facebook, put it on your phone and participate or we're going to kill you.
Click the subscribe button now!
All right, man, chill.
That's not how it's done. It's done totally subliminally. And that is how the globalist elite, the globalists or the cabal or the New World Order, or however you want to, whatever buzzword you want to use, has been controlling humanity for the last 150 years. hell, maybe even longer, you know, with the Tartaria calamity and the mud flood and all of that sort of stuff. If you start looking into that interesting bit of history, it's just been a total social engineering. And, you know, it's little subtle things like this, little hints. Why did they design a phone that way? Why did they design it to where you don't have a choice? We're going to put that social media app on your phone whether you want it there or not. You know, that is the subtle dick wag in your face. And I imagine eventually, when it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when Dave Kelso finally gets banned by you know, Adolf Zuckerberg, you know, that I'll be leaving Facebook permanently too, and posting on my see Kyle, and you can even throw the frog in there when we all do that. That goes where you're doing the little frog reference. Z Kyle. But anyway, moving on. You know, it really does strike a major chord as to how societally ingrained social media has become. And yes, I acknowledge social media is a tool. I love DeviantArt. I love YouTube. There are several different types of social platforms that I do love because they're not entirely narcissistic. There's creativity. You know, is there still narcissism on DA? Yes, but it's like a tenth of what it would be on Facebook or Instagram or any of the mainstream social media sites. Is there narcissism on YouTube? Yes. I mean, you know, YouTube's CEO isn't really the most nice person on the planet. She is a cunt, to put it boldly. Anyway, moving on. You know, it's sickening. And, you know, that's kind of where the depression that I've been going through has been coming from. It's been just, you know, how utterly fucked humanity is, how fucked we've been. You know, and how we've allowed ourselves to stoop to this level of just complete, you know, crawling in the metaphorical dog shit, as it were. I mean, you know, it's like, holy moly, you've got to be kidding me. But it's been a historical cycle. You know, we've been going through this for a long time. Going into the governmental aspects of things, let me pull up just kind of the first excerpt of the Declaration of Independence here. I mean, you know, it's not the first time we've seen this sort of choice to suffer as opposed to doing the right thing and throwing, you know, off the chains of those who would decide that we perpetually suffer continuously. And let me look through here. There's always a quote here in the beginning portion of the Declaration of Independence that really kind of speaks to me, and it goes beyond governments. You know, it just kind of is a message for humanity's dispositions, as it were, how humanity tends to operate. And this is also something that needs to end. You know, like this can't be a thing anymore. It needs to be done. We got to be done with this because, you know, continuing in the cycle is asinine. It's Einstein's definition of insanity. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and trying to convince yourself that it's the right thing to do. It's not. You've just got to acknowledge, like, no, it done. But anyway, so prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. You know, people don't really look at those words and really understand what that is trying to say.
Okay, so we got our freedom, but management's lousing up everything.
Labor is at fault. It's ruining the country.
My constituents, as your elected representative, I can assure you Labor's right, management's right. I'm strictly neutral.
Labor
Management, politicians, phooey. They can't tell corn from oats.
Work! It's only taking money out of
Hurry, step right up, folks. Here's the answer to your problems. Dr. Utopia's sensational new discovery, ISM. ISM will cure any ailment of the body politic. It's terrific. It's tremendous. Once you swallow the contents of this bottle, you'll have the bountiful benefit of higher wages, shorter hours, and security. Enormous profits, no strikes. Remember, you're the big boss. Government control, no worry about votes. Name your own salary. Bigger crops, lower costs. Why, ISM even makes the weather perfect every day. And now then, because we are introducing this amazing item for the first time in this country, it isn't going to cost you 1 cent. All you have to do is sign this little scrap of paper, and you get your bottle absolutely free.
I hereby turn over to ISM Incorporated everything I have, including my freedom and the freedom of my children and my children's children, in return for which said ISM promises to take care of me forever.
I was here first. You paid 2 bottles. Get out of the way.
Pardon me. And who are you, my good man?
I'm John Q. Public.
Ah, my fine friend, you're just in time to share this generous and gigantic offer. Sign right here.
Mind if I read it first?
Hurry up,
Keep your shirts on, boys. Including my freedom. Freedom? Well, sign away my freedom. Why, this is ridiculous.
Don't be corny, brother.
Sure, our system of free enterprise isn't perfect. But before we throw it away for some imported double talk, you boys ought to try a little taste of Dr. Ism's formula to see what you'd get in exchange for your freedom. Go ahead, try it.
You can't do this to me. I'll strike.
The state forbids strikes.
Wait till the union hears about this.
Ah, yes, the union. Welcome to our ranks, number 1313.
I'll take this case to the Supreme Court.
The state is the Supreme Court. Our decision is as follows. No more private property. No more you.
The farm vote will put a stop to this.
Farmers don't vote anymore.
What'll they do for seed next year?
You won't have to worry about next year. The state will do your planning from now on.
We must fight to regain our freedom, or everything is lost. Everything.
Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine. Everything is fine.
When anybody preaches disunity, tries to pit one of us against the other through class warfare, race hatred, or religious intolerance, you know that person seeks to rob us of our freedom and destroy our very lives. And we know what to do about it.
And now, gentlemen, no violence, please. And don't throw those bottles. Don't throw those bottles. No! Oh, no! No! Hey!
You know, so going back to Facebook, which isn't government, it's not a governmental institution. Might as well be. I mean, it's controls, it's 90% of social media right there. That's pretty powerful. It's 90% of online interaction. That's pretty powerful.
It receives millions of dollars in government subsidies, and that's
millions of dollars, you know, if not billions of dollars in government subsidies. And, you know, over 1 billion people use Facebook. You know, that's an entire country. That's the population of China. That's pretty big, right? Google. Everybody uses Google. Everybody goes to google.com. You don't have a choice. It's Google or nobody. Maybe Bing, but even Bing pulls search results from Google. What's that tell you? So that isn't even really competition in and of itself. You know, so as I've been saying, you know, since 2015, 2016, you know, we are in the spirit of 76, you know, and we're going through these same lessons yet again. It's like, you know, and 2019 is going to be, especially as 2018's been even more so in 2019, it's going to be another ass kick here, because the way humanity is and the way we've been is we've got to have our asses kicked to the point where people decide we no longer want our asses kicked because it hurts too much, and now I can't really enjoy my life anymore.
Louis C.K. offended a bunch of whiny millennial imbeciles by attacking non-binary people. He punched down! Oh wait, he didn't attack anyone, he merely told the truth and was funny.
But I'm a little disappointed in the younger generation, honestly, because I'm 51 years old, and when I was like 18 to my 20s, I mean, we were idiots. We were getting high, doing fucking mushrooms and shit. And then older people were like, you gotta get your shit together. And we were like, yeah, fuck you. And I was kind of excited to be in my 50s and see people in their 20s and be like, they're crazy. These kids are nuts. But they're not. They're fucking, they're just boring. Fucking telling them, you shouldn't say that. What are you, an old lady? What the fuck are you doing? That's not appropriate. Fuck you, you're a child. Why are you finger fucking each other and doing jello shots? Like, why aren't you... You should address me. They're like royalty. They tell you what to call them. Fuck them. You should address me as they, them. Because I identify as gender neutral. Oh, okay. Okay. You should address me as there, because I identify as a location. And the location is your mother's cunt.
And if that offends you, then it's because he's talking about you. Oh, the sweet fucking irony. It's only offensive to pedantic, joyless idiots who are so goddamn precious they can't handle a finger being pointed at their own relentless stupidity.
You know what's the worst, most boring kind of comedy? The kind where older white men are angry that older white men can't do or say whatever the fuck they want anymore.
And yet he did say whatever the fuck he wanted, and everyone laughed. A situation that's probably alien to you, because you're not funny. You had 3 major comedy ventures besides being Conan O'Brien's bitch, and all were cancelled after 1 or 2 seasons due to poor ratings. But you're gonna lecture us about boring comedy? Actually, I take it back, you're obviously an expert in the field. I'll tell you what's boring, when the purpose of a joke is not to be funny, but to impart some form of intersectional indoctrination. Like your cringeworthy, white, guilt-ridden tweet. That's boring.
I mean, he's like a right-wing comic now. He's Milo.
Yeah, he's so right-wing, he literally told everyone to vote for Hillary Clinton because Americans need a mom to feed us, teach us, and protect us.
I'm going to vote for Hillary because I think she's great. It's not like a lesser of two evils. I think she's great.
So right-wing. He also wrote a letter in 2016 saying Trump is Hitler. So right-wing. He also said Sarah Palin was a fucking retard-making cunt. So right-wing. So they only got offended by words, once those words were being used to tear down the sacred church of intersectionality. Isn't that interesting? It's almost like they're just pretending to get offended on behalf of other people, that they have no real principles and only really care about obtaining cultural power. Louis C.K. has sounded the same for the past 20 years. But as soon as he takes one dig at political correctness, only then does he have to be publicly shamed into silence. Interesting. Disgraced comic Louis C.K. mocks school massacre survivors. Again, listen to the actual joke, read the headline, then read the comments. The clear majority of people either found it funny or don't care. And no amount of alarmist headlines or righteously indignant tweets is ever going to change that reality.
I listened to the Louis C.K. clip and I'm proud of being part of a generation that pisses off old white dudes and tries to make difference.
Nah. You're part of a generation that has ruined comedy with your whiny, pedantic, virtue-signalling shite. A generation that will thankfully become irrelevant when Gen Z, which loves edgy offensive humour, kicks your blubbering ass to the curb.
Louis C.K.'s new set apparently has a section attacking non-binary people. He thinks it's wrong to use they as a singular pronoun. I, on the other hand, think it's wrong to sexually assault people.
You think sexually assaulting people is wrong? Wow, such an edgy opinion to broadcast. Stunning and brave. Here's 20,000 likes. So Louis C.K. does a bit about millennials being hypersensitive and easily offended. And millennials react by being hypersensitive and easily offended, thereby proving his exact fucking point. Like, is there a level of self-awareness below zero that it's possible for you lot to reach at this point? Notice how the audience at the Louis C.K. gig is laughing, while on Twitter, all you permanently offended idiots are just shrieking into your own echo chamber. Notice how the vast majority of comments on the YouTube clip found the bit hilarious and didn't care if it was offensive. Notice how, just to make it seem more dark and ominous, Twitter put a trigger warning in front of their own story about people being triggered by it. Notice how this is all just another shouty witch hunt being artificially amplified by social media's relentless clamour for contrived outrage. When you ring-fence virtually anything that might offend someone, somewhere, you strangle satire. And then what are we left with? Amy Schumer talking about her vagina again and again and again.
Vagina. 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 Vagina's vagina. 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 Vagina.
Just do women's comedy stuff, you know, talk about how fat you are and how you want to have sex with guys and then say, my vagina a lot.
British comedy used to be the envy of the world. It was daring, it was edgy, it was the new rock and roll. Now look at the state of it.
A 28-year-old man expects praise for not being a misogynist.
Monty Python and The Office wouldn't even get commissioned now. So congrats, you ruined comedy. You're the new Puritans, you're the new moral inquisitors, you're the new censors. And that's why you're no longer the counterculture. Perfect end to Bizarro World 2018.
Hello, I'm from the Australian Government, where we take satire seriously. That's why we're here to warn you not to fall for satirical government ads like the ones by the Juice Media, which can easily happen if you're a big knob. Take a look.
If I saw this in my letterbox and I didn't look carefully at it, I'd probably think that's the coat of arms, but if I looked carefully at it, I'd realise it wasn't. So
clearly satire, as you said earlier.
It's only clearly satire if you study it.
He's right. You should be worried about people who impersonate the government. People like George Brandis, who, if you saw him in your letterbox and didn't look carefully, might seem like an attorney general who fights for free speech. But if you look carefully, is actually a bellend trying to ban satire and encryption to usher in a lulzless surveillance state. Or Pete, who looks like a harmless potato, but when you look carefully is committing human rights violations against genuine refugees on Manus and Nauru. Or Chris, who looks like an arrogant prat, and if you look carefully, is an arrogant prat, who also makes deals with genuinely brutal terrorist regimes. And of course, Malcolm, who from a distance might seem like a leader, but when you look closely is actually a genuine stooge. Why else would he call for a postal survey instead of a vote in Parliament? Unless he was a parody of a genuine Prime Minister, or blow $1 billion on another fucking coal mine instead of renewables, unless he was impersonating someone who genuinely gives a shit about climate change. The answer, of course, is that we might look like a government that serves you, but if you look closely, our allegiance is actually to corporations, coal lobbies, and raving nutbags. Fortunately for us, you're all too busy worrying about whether we're dual citizens instead of whether we're genuine sellouts and corporate ass puppets waging war on your rights, such as the right to satirise us, which you don't really have. Because while this might look like a genuine constitution, if you study it closely, it doesn't even include a fucking Bill of Rights. Authorised by the Department of Genuine Satire.
You know, but people have also got to make that conscientious decision when they finally get to that point where they decide that waking up is less painful than continuing to live in complacency, that they're not going to do that anymore. You know, they've got to decide for themselves to commit to that personal revolution. You know, the metaphorical American Revolution has to occur in every single person who is truly committed to doing something before it can happen in a you know, environmental level. All of that crap's got to happen in here.
All of this reminds me of a joke which I heard from the comic book Watchmen. Man goes into doctor, says he's depressed, says life seems harsh and cruel, says he feels all alone in a world where what lies ahead is vague and uncertain. Doctor says treatment is simple. Great clown Pagliacci is in town tonight. Go and see him. That should pick you up. The man bursts into tears, says, "But doctor, I am Pagliacci." It doesn't matter what you say, because it never mattered what you said, and I finally just realized that. I'm not angry in the slightest. In fact, I feel quite liberated. I've realized it's all one big joke with a punchline that is getting increasingly funnier with all the nonsense that is happening. At this point, I'm like a drunken firefighter trying to stop a wildfire with a garden hose. The hose certainly isn't going to stop it, so why not piss on it from time to time and have a little fun? What I'm getting at is I think it's time for a meme jihad. It's time to empty our bladders on the apocalyptic dumpster fire.
And, part of my process going into the long turning around back into my personal, what I was just about to say at the very beginning of what it is that I'm doing. So I went through Facebook, I cleared a bunch of people out that I don't talk to. It's just virtue signaling. No point even having them there because I don't talk to them. I don't say anything to them. We're not really friends anyway. Maybe they were classmates or somebody who cares. And I disable Instagram because it's a pointless app. It does nothing. I don't, I used it a little bit, but it's another worthless app that has absolutely no purpose for any such thing other than just being self-centered and narcissistic. And I'm sick and tired of self-centered narcissism. I'm sick and tired of people who are self-centered and narcissistic, and I'm sick and tired of a humanity that is self-centered and narcissistic and virtue signals as if though it's a good thing. I'm done. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm done. And I'm done with people who act that way. I will cut people off that act that way. I will throw people under the bus who act that way, and I will not interact with people who act that way because those people are toxic. Those people are why Nazi Germany happened.
Wir am Nazis. Die Heil! Die Heil! Und wir will have war. Die Heil! Die Heil! Und wir Gesundheit! Gesundheit!
Those people are why the Soviet Union happened. Those people are why every tyranny throughout recorded history and unrecorded history, Tartaria, all of that stuff, those are the very scum who allowed tyrants to take control because they complicitly went along with the unimaginable wrongdoings of some very sick people. And they don't, and the unfortunate thing is, that sounds harsh, but you also have to keep in mind those people don't know any better, but at the same time, that doesn't mean I have to be around people who don't know any better. And it's a waste of my energy and a waste of my time to be around those sort because they will never see, they will never awaken, and they will perpetually walk themselves right off the cliff. But I'm going to surround myself with people who are like-minded, who see the light, and who want to do something positive and who want to change this planet for the better and not just sit around narcissistically twiddling their thumbs on Facebook or on Instagram, talking about how clean and glowy their skin is or, what kind of good thing they did for some kid today or what, whatever the case may be. I'm done. I'm done. It's like, I'm glad your skin glows. I'm glad you did something nice for a kid. That's great, wonderful, good. You're a good person, cool. I'll give you a heart react, whatever. But overall, it's like, walk your talk. Don't sit here and say one thing to me on my news feed and then act totally a different way when you're not on the news feed. To me, that says you're a despicable human being, and I'm not going to waste my time with that. Just plain and simple. So here's to 2019, here's to opportunity, here's to growth, here's to health, here's to happiness, and here's to a humanity that finally decides to pull its head out of its ass and finally do the right thing, as the Parisians are doing in Paris, and as the rest of Europe is starting to follow in that example, and hopefully very soon, us here in the United States of America.
Everything we heard driving up on this before we got there was all about how this is the next French Revolution, this is the redo of the 1968 protest, this is going to be so bad, it's going to be the worst thing ever. But what we ended up seeing mostly was just a lot of angry people walking around. and then riot cops shooting tear gas at them. People when no one's actually doing anything.
And really, not a lot of violence from the crowd, although I did see a few provocateurs in the crowd who had masks and they were covering their faces. You know, the vast majority of protesters were just themselves wearing the yellow vest that everyone wears, and they were just there. But a small handful of people were wearing masks, had their face covered. And that was who you saw interacting with police, kicking windows, throwing down motorcycles. Setting cars on fire. There was a lot of cars set on fire.
There was a lot of cars set on fire, but it didn't make a lot of sense because there were so many cops everywhere, and there was a helicopter overhead that was monitoring the crowd from above and radioing down. And somehow these cars would get set on fire, and they were allowed to burn for a really, really long time with nobody doing anything about it, which made no sense because as soon as a group of protesters got to a street corner and amassed enough of them, the cops immediately would run down that way and surround that area and start shooting at them, trying to break them up. So I mean, it was full-on military-style police force out in the streets, and yet somehow these cars, not only, I mean, were they obviously being set on fire, but they were allowed to burn for just a really long time.
I think we should get out of here. I think we should go. Go, come on.
Because yeah, on every corner the police were always there waiting for the crowd, and
I think we should go.
they would charge at them and challenge them with the tear gas just for standing there and doing nothing. But they wouldn't do anything to stop the cars being set on fire, which we saw again and again at corner after corner. And it seemed like they would wait for the battery to explode and make an even bigger fire, send that black smoke down the street that we saw so many times. And then eventually the fire truck would show up and put out the fire.
Which is ridiculous because they knew exactly where it was and what was going on. Like I said, there was a helicopter overhead, so they could pretty much see everything that was going on from a bird's eye view. Overall, it really seemed like they were promoting this more than trying to shut it down.
You make a very good point because one misconception that a lot of people seem to have, and a lot of quote-unquote woke people, a lot of very dedicated people, a lot of very knowledgeable people, you know, not to diss anybody, but a common misconception is the misconception that we have to save everybody, otherwise woe is me, we can do nothing at all.
You won't save the planet. You'll be like the cat lady with 75 cats. I try to save everyone. And it creates this horrible stench, dysfunctional place. That's what we're doing. All the false religions, including New Age garbage, that is not wanting to address the dark stuff inside each individual, clean up your own backyard. Toxic waste dump is what we are when we are not dealing with our stuff inside us. We literally have a trail of astral shit, astral dark energy coming out our backside.
When that's acting like the cat lady, what happens to the cat lady? The cat lady thinks she has to save all the cats, and what does her house turn into? There's piss everywhere, there's shit everywhere, it's a dysfunctional mess, and that's kind of what humanity has done. That's, that's why the things that happen, because, look at any religion, any spirituality, any political anything, any movement, cause, groupthink, whatever, it's never what it's supposed to be. What it's supposed to be is you be the change that you want to create and inspire others that are willing to be inspired, and then those, domino effect, ripples, etc. That's what it's supposed to be. But most people don't understand that. They think they have to convince everybody else, save everybody else. It's all or nothing. We have to save the world. We have to force people to wake up and look, I'm not trying to be discompassionate when I say this. I'm not trying to say this in a negative way, and I'll clarify my context, but fuck the world. What I mean by that is you can't save the world. And if you try, you're the cat lady. And it's just going to be all this dysfunctional mess. You can't save anyone. In fact, the harsh, stark reality, although it's a positive thing to realize this, but the process of realizing it can be a bit painful, is that the only thing you have control over in this world at all is yourself. That is literally the one and only thing.
And the real deal about real awakening is you gotta face your shit. You gotta deal with your demons and face your shit. There's no other way around it. Alright? The unacknowledged, subconscious, unexpressed, repressed, suppressed aspects of ourselves, of yourself. That's what the demons are. So on the real spiritual path, love and light is not going to work. In fact, it works the opposite. If you just keep invoking light, it's going to put more and more pressure on these demonic aspects. That's why you'll see teachers and people who do not deal with their own stuff, their own aspects, their shadow side. If you don't deal with it, and I'm coming on strong here a little bit today, okay? It manifests in denial, co-opts, takes you over, possesses you. So that teaching that was for good turns bad, co-opted, in denial. You want to help the earth? You want to save all the cats? You want to save the rainforest? You want to save the planet? Heal your fucking shadow. You got to deal with your fucking shadow. If you don't deal with your fucking shadow, you're doomed to repeat ad nauseum, same shit, different day. Same shit, different civilization. So if we don't do it, it don't fucking happen. If we don't face our shadow side, it don't fucking happen. You won't save the planet. Some honesty. Here's some truth. Alright? It's the reality of it. The reality is that. So, when your horrible feelings of sadness, grief, hopelessness, fear of survival, terror, rage, those are the ones that are the most in need of feeling and healing. Allowing to surface, allowing to transmute, to alchemize. You want to save the planet? Deal with your fucking shadow. It's the reality of it. The truth of it.
That's why you can't convince anybody else of anything. You can't force anybody else to be what you want them to be. And if you try, you're just going to get oppositional resistance. That's why the whole, meme of the truth movement, like, oh, we got to wake everybody up. We got to wake everybody up. We got to wake everybody up. The best way to wake everybody up is stop worrying about what everybody thinks. Stop trying to save everybody. Stop trying to wake everybody up. And be the living example of the change you want to create. And, like, when you use phrases like that, like, the first thing that comes to mind is like, well, what have you done to be the positive change, Dave? What great, glorious things have you done? No great, glorious things whatsoever. In fact, to think that they have to be big, great, glorious things, world-renowned things, goes back to that whole save everybody or we're all fucked. It goes back to that narcissistic, dominating, have to convince everybody, have to save everybody. I've done fuck all when it comes to great, glorious, world-renowned things. I've done nothing. But have I been the change I want to create? Yes. In my life, in the people that I touch, in the people that I affect, in the people who watch me, the people who want to watch me, not because I'm trying to force ideas on them, but because they look at what I'm saying and they already resonate. Like, hey, that Dave guy already thinks what I think. It's not about me trying to convince anybody into what I think. If you don't already resonate with me and you don't already share my perspectives, awesome! And if you never do, well, more power or disempowerment, I guess, whichever, to you. Whatever you want to do, for better or worse. I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. And I'll end my little mini rant and let Katerina take over on this note. People don't know the difference between work and toil, between education and indoctrination. They don't know the difference between employment and slavery. And that is a big problem.
All I want to say is, don't you mean Jasmine?
Well, I had something to say real quick.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I mean her. I saw Katerina's mic unmuted, so
Yeah.
that's why I'm
Gotcha.
directing Katerina.
Fair enough.
Yeah, pay attention to the mic labels, guys.
Yeah.
True.
Well, what I was going to say, Dave, was that, even Mother Teresa said that. She said that don't try to do great things. Do small things with great love. That's really the essence of it. It's like, don't try to aspire to be some big shot somebody. It's just more about who you are as a person on an individual level and how you interact with the people around you and how that radiates out to them and the people that they touch. It's about the ripples.
This being, okay, that is like a portal. So like each one of us can be a portal into the, I hate to say higher frequencies, but
And the other thing that I was going to say, Rich, and what you were talking about is I understand what you're talking about with social media and everything like that. But at the same time, it kind of goes back a bit to to build the new thing, you kind of have to use the old thing. I think it's just more about creating the inner boundaries with yourself of this is fake, this is garbage, like you're doing, limiting what you take in. For me personally, I have the Facebook, I have a Facebook ad blocker, not ad blocker, but a newsfeed blocker. And the only time I check my Facebook is when I'm on my computer. But I still make sure that I have the Facebook thing on my computer so I can put stuff out into the world and I can interact with people. And on my Instagram, I only follow, and I don't go exploring, I only follow people who are people who don't feel like narcissists to me, you know what I mean? I follow only about 22 people.
And just to put in a quick disclaimer for the viewing audience, because you know how words are and how people will misunderstand, I can imagine some people's reactions right now thinking, but wait a minute, Katerina, it's people sticking their head in the sand that's allowed the New World Order to rise. Aren't you just sticking your head in the sand? No, you're not. Katerina is still receiving information about world events and about global scumbaggery and whatever. She's not limiting the information about the world that she's receiving. She's just simply choosing to receive it from people who are not narcissistic assholes. She's still finding out all about Paris, all about the banksters, all about the migration stuff in Europe and this and that and everywhere else. She's not blocking off knowledge of world events. She's just getting that knowledge from people who aren't narcissistic assholes, and she's just tuning out from the narcissistic assholes mental. She's not tuning out from the relevant information. I mean, hell, she watches Max Egan videos and stuff like that. Like, Max Egan is very in your face about world events, very, very blunt, very forward, very matter of fact, hitting it with the hammers.
And it's very important that people make a noise now. Make a noise in a strong, eloquent way. A strong, eloquent, non-violent way. We really don't need violence. We need people to see that what we are saying is really basic logic. It's basic common sense. You know, the outcry that we have against the government, it's basic common sense against criminality. And people need to see it that way. They need to become empowered. And that's really been the purpose the whole time, is to inspire people, to motivate people to become empowered, to motivate people into standing up for themselves. And now's the time that we have to do it, folks. It's really coming down to the wire. You know, ever since I began this radio show almost 10 years ago now, that has really been the underlying purpose of the show, to not only expose the corruption of the system that we're forced to endure, but also to inspire people into discovering themselves or rediscovering themselves, and hopefully inspiring them to make change in the world around them, to be the change that they want to see. Because this entire system, as I've explained so many times, the entire thing exists and the entire matrix exists solely due to our tolerance of it. And if you want to look at it a little deeper, it's really due to our tolerance of wrong behavior. You know, everything this system does against us, it's able to do through our tolerance of wrong behavior, and by simply not asking the right questions and acting on our principles when we should. You know, so many people write to me and ask what the solutions are, and so many people comment on my videos and ask why I don't ever supply solutions. They just don't see that they are the solution. It's our choice to comply with wrong behavior, and our choice to step outside our moral compass in the face of a system that we all know is corrupt. We know it's corrupt, but we go along with it anyway, and we never ask why. And generally, we do it out of fear. And that is the problem. That's why no one can offer you a solution, because most people just want someone to say, well, I've got this big movement I'm going to start, and then they want to sit there and watch the YouTube videos and hold that person's coat while they get up and save the world. They don't realize that they can do it themselves. All they have to do is change the way they interact with the system around them. You know, there's so many times and so many instances where we're forced to step outside of our moral compass, and we never ask why. We do it, we comply, because we think, well, by doing so, we're complying with the law. But if the law is causing harm, then how is it a law? We just never ask that question. And even if we're attempting to awaken our friends and relatives, we never really put it in that context in a way that they can understand it as well. And that's something that I'm getting a lot of letters from people saying they're having a lot of difficulty waking up people around them. And perhaps it's because a lot of people are in a state of fear and they're not just looking at it logically and explaining the harm that's been caused. And perhaps if you can simply explain it in logical terms to your friends and siblings around you, perhaps they will see the harm that's been caused. Perhaps you can point it out to them in a way that they can understand it. And it's really a quite simple, logical approach you can take, and you can do it without being in a state of fear. You just kind of sit down and explain things logically to them. You know, if 1 and 1 makes 2, then 2 and 2 must make 4. And this is kind of what I touched on near the close of last week's show when I explained the amount of harm that government and their legislation was actually causing to our society, and how this actually contravenes the legal system. It actually negates the legal system itself. It renders the legal system invalid simply because the legal system was created to prevent the causation of harm. And this is just a logical way of looking at it, folks, because if the legislation the government is creating itself is what is causing harm, then how is the legal system valid and how is government valid? How do these two things both work together? When one is there to prevent the causation of harm, and yet the very people who created that system can be seen as being the source of all the harm that has been caused. And when you look at what our governments are rolling out, you look at the 5G grid, the smart grid, the IoT, all the legislation that they're putting in place, well, there's certainly a lot of harm being caused by this. Our problem is we don't ever identify it as harm. We just view it as law and feel we must comply, and we allow the system to cause harm against us by claiming we're causing harm against the system if we don't comply with their rules. And it's ridiculous. It's all backwards. And we simply never identify the harm that's being caused and question why we should allow that harm to be caused. and kind of flip it around logically and put the blame back on the politician that's enacted the legislation which is causing the harm, which is really what we should be doing. And even the current work ethic causes harm, folks. The system that we are forced to participate in order to collect the paper we need to pay to be alive causes harm simply by existing the way it does. And when you think about it, go back 40 years, take it back to 1978. In those 40 years, on average now, people work around 300% harder. With inflation, they earn about 10% less than what they used to earn back in 1978, and they pay around about 220% more for things, which cost far less to produce than what they did in 1978. So under this system, folks, most people get just enough to put petrol in their car, pay the overheads for their houses, get the kids to school, put a little bit of cheap food on the table, and just have enough left to be able to put enough petrol in the car to be able to get back to work the next week. This is not living, folks. This is servitude. And with the IoT and the social crediting system that they are rolling out on top of all of this, it's going to get far, far worse if we continue to fail to recognize the fact, the reality, that the world is run by criminals. Our governments are a criminal cabal that is milking the wealth of this population dry. Why do you think all the politicians are millionaires when you live in a situation where in 40 years you're working 300% harder to earn 10% less and pay 220% more for everything? What, overpopulation? Scarcity of resources? Is that what you think? Because it's not. The world isn't overpopulated and it isn't scarce of resources, just badly managed on purpose. Or perhaps you think it's because of economic reasons. But really? Think about it. How do you think this is the result of economic tensions or economic upheavals or world economic trade agreements or tariffs or whatever they're saying it is the result of, folks? How can you sit back and allow this system to continue and look at what that's done in the last 40 years? Imagine what it's going to be like in another 10 years. In another 10 years, everyone's going to be walking between the lines and they're basically going to be working in open slave jobs if we do not address the criminality and the racketeering that has infested our political systems in all countries, folks. If we fail to recognize that what we have here is an international crime gang that is running this world into the ground, then we're never going to get anywhere. It doesn't matter what sort of solution anyone attempts to put forth. It doesn't matter what sort of system anyone attempts to try. It doesn't matter whether you want to do permaculture, or whether you want to do this, or whether you want to do that. You won't be able to do any of it because it's legislated that you can't, because we failed to factor in the harm that government causes simply by making us live in this state of servitude to begin with, let alone what they're doing with all the radiation and the 5G and all the other stuff that I was talking about before, which is soon going to go to 6G and 7G, which is just out of control. These are frequencies that we just don't want to be anywhere near, folks. And this is where they're going. You know, and we're not looking at any of it as something that is causing harm. We're just looking at it as illegal stuff. Oh, we've got to do this because the government tells us we have to do it. No, we don't. What we have to do is stop the causation of harm. And if the governments are causing harm, then governments have outlived their usefulness. And I would suggest they did that a long time ago. Our problem is that we just don't call things for what they are. We're too politically correct. We've been trained that we have to be nice about everything rather than just simply saying the truth and calling things for what they are. This is ridiculous. This whole system is ridiculous. There's no way we should be living our lives in this way and putting up with all this rubbish from these people, so why are we doing it? That's the question. And again, you know, it comes back to the same old thing, because the reason we're doing it is because we live in disunited communities. Why? Because we keep arguing and fighting with each other over our belief systems and over this and over that, rather than simply turning and addressing the ones who've created the problem to begin with, which is the government. You know, if we're going to have a political system at all, we need it run by responsible people, and we certainly don't have that. And as I often say, if you need evidence of that, well, Exhibit A, the Earth. Have a look at it. It's a mess. Why? Because it's legislated to be that way, and we don't ever call it. We run out and try to put Band-Aids on all these problems, but we don't ever address the cause of the problem. We run out and try to address the symptoms rather than addressing the sickness itself, which is the criminality of governments. That is the sickness that has infected the world. And it's infected the entire world, and it's time we called it for what it is. And we don't need to be politically correct about it. The world's run by criminals. They're running us into the ground, and they're making us walk between the lines, and they're slowly turning up the heat more and more and more, and they've been doing it for years. And it's getting to the point now that it's getting beyond ridiculous, folks. So So really, I mean, when are people going to see this and put down all their stuff with their neighbours and put down all their stuff with all the people that they're arguing with? When is the truth community and the truth movement or the resistance or whatever it's supposed to be going to put down all this stuff with each other, stop attacking each other and berating each other, and simply turn and call the government out for their criminal activities? Why don't we just do that, folks?
So she's not sticking her head in the sand. It's just Max Egan isn't a raging narcissist, and therefore she likes listening to his videos.
Right.
Clarification.
And I also listen to the Leo King, who's an astrologer that blends it with world events, you know, and all of this stuff, you know. So I'm just saying that, like, for me, I don't need a constant stream of all of this garbage in my face. I realized I needed to go on a media fast. You know, there was just so much irrelevant content in my face all the time that was just taking up space inside of my brain. And, you know, I prefer services like YouTube, even though Susan is a chode, you know, like.
I'm very proud of the CEO of YouTube. Her name, Susan Mortiga. And she is doing wonderful job. As a matter of fact, she's doing such wonderful job for SJW. The you could even say she's doing wonderful job. Oh yes. Oh, very good. Susan, I do not have much advice for you. I know you ask for advice on your channel. You like YouTubers, give me the advice, and people give. I don't have much advice for you. I just want to tell you what a wonderful job you've been doing to push forward the cause, the holy religion of the SJW.
Hello guys, I'm Saul. I'm a worker here in the YouTube headquarters. Recently at YouTube, we have been getting very good feedback on what we've done on the website, but keeping in mind our website has been doing so well, it's time to fuck it up. Gentlemen, you are all the most important staff on the YouTube website, but you have all fucked up. People are actually liking YouTube now. That's right. So behind me there's a screen showing how we're gonna make people hate us again. Gentlemen, no more wasting time. It's time to fuck YouTube up. Meanwhile, time to check my YouTube channel. So why the fuck was my video demonetized?
So we already fucking told you, your video was literally called Hitler Did Nothing Wrong.
So?
That's offensive for a lot of people.
So?
That means your video is not advertiser friendly.
What the fuck is that supposed to mean?
That means Toys R Us does not want their ads on a video about Hitler.
Pussies.
YouTube, why?
You said the F word 2 times.
But why should that matter?
You said the F word 2 times.
Yes, YouTube, I know. But come on. You can't unmonetize me for saying fuck 2 times.
You said the F word.
You will ruin careers when you can afford my fucking alcohol addiction, you little piece of...
YouTube, please, my mom needs her alcohol money.
You said the F word 2 times.
Where's my alcohol, motherfucker?
Miss Susan, may I come in?
Yes, come right in.
What the fuck?
If she is one of you, will be one of us.
she calls you know.
I still prefer being able to pick the content that I choose and at the time I want it, and you know what I mean? Like, it's a completely different experience than just being served a bunch of shit on a platter and being like, here you go. I mean, even though the thing is so many of us feel guilty about unfollowing people.
In fairness, the alternative services such as BitChute, Minds, Gab, and so on do arrange themselves in the kind of ways that you would prefer. You have that control. You don't get garbage, shoved down your throat. So I just want to mention that. I mean, not to say that you have to go use those services per se. You want to, but for the viewing audience, if you really want to support something that's more in service to humanity, go create an account on DeviantArt, on Minds, on Gab, on BitChute, on BitTube. Support the alternative platforms that aren't trying to shove all the garbage that you don't want down your throat and aren't trying to say, oh, our apps are on your phone and fuck you, you can't uninstall it, go to hell. Support the platforms that aren't trying to play this narcissistic psychological warfare on you.
Well, and to my point, and to clarify, the reason I'm done with Instagram is because I find it kind of boring, honestly. There's not really a whole lot for me to do on there. And, I do use Facebook, to clarify, and I have titrated my news feed down a little bit. That's why I unfollowed and unfriended a bunch of people, that I didn't really know, because it's kind of like, I don't need that kind of garbage clogging up my feed anyway. And I'm still going to work on it, later on as time goes on. But the big thing, it's all about titration, and it's all about, picking what you want. And, that's the one thing I do like about DeviantArt and I like about YouTube is you can really focus social media around your interests. You can do it with Facebook too. It's Facebook. I'm part of a bunch of different hobby groups on there that I love, that, a lot of interesting, fascinating information, a lot of good pictures that I like to download. A lot of my aircraft photos that I've got on my hard drive, I downloaded from Facebook. Photos you can't even find in a Google image search.
There's a Tartaria group on there too.
Tartaria group. I'm part of
Mud Flood Research, I think it's called.
I'm part of that. I'm part of several aviation groups, part of several coin collecting groups, part of several firearms groups. No, there is a use for Facebook. And that's the only reason I'm still on there right now, besides the fact that, Dave is there and, there are certain people there. And the fact that I have NASA headquarters Facebook page. I'm part of Kekistani Rehab. I'm part of the Paradigm Shift in Educational Comedy, Controversy Inc. I've got a lot of activity on there, and I'm, a public figure in some ways. But
yeah. It's definitely different than like having it on your phone and you're having to be
right. But to further my point, I have really cut back. I instinctually now, I always, I'll log in on my phone out of curiosity, but I do log out every time. I always log out, so it's not pushing. It's not, because Facebook likes to do that. It likes to push things when something's brand new. It pushes it, buzzes your phone, goes, Yeah. So I always make sure to make it a policy to log out, so I don't see anything that I don't want to see when I'm not bothered. And I'm much happier. Even just doing that, I'm much happier because I'm not constantly drawn to the phone.
Right.
But I do like to listen to music from YouTube, and I like to, browse DA if Dave sends a link, and I will interact on Messenger, and I've got my RT app on there, and I've got Fox News, and I've got, let's see.
Fox News.
And maybe I'm just a rebel or something, but I don't even have a cell phone. I only have a tablet, and I don't look at the Facebook feed at all. I only look at my notifications, but I pretend the feed doesn't even exist because the feed is cancer. I only look at the notifications. If someone replies to me or whatever, the notification will come up, and I open Facebook in a browser tab on a computer. I do not open Facebook on the tablet. I do not even own a cell phone because what the fuck do I need it for anyway? It's just a digital ball and chain enslavement device. Not that it has to be. All technology is a tool, but the way it's designed right now, it is a digital ball and chain. So fuck that. I don't need to walk around with slavery in my pocket. No, thank you. So I don't even have that. My phone services do come through the internet. They're digital. I've got, I've got a regular physical phone here that's voice over IP, and I've got a Google Voice number that links everything, and I've got a phone number attached to my Skype account. So it's I've got a phone wherever I have an internet connection. I'm happy with that. I don't need a digital ball and chain shoved in my pocket. Fuck that noise.
Indeed. But, again, I have it just primarily because of my life and, all of that stuff, and I'm not always around an internet Wi-Fi modem, so, I've got to have at least a telephone number, so I can do correspondence, business, all of that stuff. But, I've got RT, I've got Google News and Weather, Deutsche Welle, NHK World, Fox News, the InfoWars official app, which I downloaded just because of how InfoWars got totally censored by the political mainstream.
I don't mean to interrupt Richard, but I do recognize I'm looking at Jasamine and I'm remembering that she needs to go to bed soon.
Right. And I was just about to say that. After that, I was like, I was going to go into the Bill Clinton impression, going, I don't mean to brag like a dog in heat, but I want to hear what Jasamine has to say.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, totally. I wanted us to talk first because I didn't want Jasamine to feel like she's been pushed out on a stage, like, okay, perform, go. I wanted to let her hear us talk so she could gather her thoughts and, have that ease and flow of figuring out what she wants to say and how and stuff, and give her enough time to collect those thoughts instead of feeling like she's being just pushed out, like, okay, perform, whoosh, because this is like her first time on one of these. So I didn't want her to feel stressed and whatever. I wanted to kind of have her watch us and have that process help her gather her thoughts, because I know how her mind works pretty well at this point as far as that. So we were kind of helping her gather thoughts. So I think she would rather comment on everything we had to say rather than try to come up with something from scratch at this point, because she's new to this. So now that we've bombarded her brain with all sorts of ideas, I'm going to shut up and let her comment on all the stuff we said.
Mm-hmm.
Well, first thing I was gonna say is something about I don't have Facebook at all, and you guys and plus Kristen, and I think I can't remember if it was Krista or Kristen or both, or basically everyone here, that they're glad that I don't have a Facebook account and have told me not to get one at all, so I'm like, okay. And
it was Kristen Meyer. Okay. She was originally going to be here, but she just can't make it because she's out with her boyfriend, so that is what that is. Anyway, moving on.
Well, that was, I don't want to say a lot to take in, but it was a lot for my brain and memory to take in. Mm-hmm. But I guess I don't have very much to say.
Well, your thoughts on maybe society and your experiences. I know you've been homeschooled, so that's kind of a benefit, that you've had. You're 18 years old and you haven't set foot in the mind-numbing establishment, and even though your curriculum is coming from the mind-numbing establishment, at least you've been able to take it at your own pace, on your own terms, and not have the complete and total malware mind fuck, full subjection to the system and all its tyranny. So you've had that advantage. So you could tell us a bit about how it's been to be homeschooled and not have that manipulation constantly.
It's been great. it's been really great because I can confirm that if I wasn't homeschooled my entire life, I probably would have committed suicide in high school. Look, I am still in high school, but yeah, like for freshman year of high school, I would have definitely committed suicide, if not second year, because of all the pressure and the curriculums. They'd be teaching it to me too fast. I wouldn't be able to study, and I couldn't study anything. I wouldn't be able to understand anything. No one would try to explain anything to me. And not to mention high school, public schools are just crap, and they really mess with you. Especially people there, they can really get to you, and I'd say either I would have killed someone, then killed myself, or both, or I would have just killed myself because I just couldn't bear it. I couldn't bear all the stress this pile on. I could barely handle algebra by itself. There are a few things in algebra that I did enjoy.
Video is going to be banned now. There's an AR-15 here. Uh-oh, she wants to shoot up the school. Oh no. Come here, kiddies. By the way, it's a paintball gun, so don't worry.
Is that one of your real ones, or is that a prop?
It's a paintball gun.
Oh, okay.
Just looks like an AR. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I went to Christian private school, and what I like to tell people is that if you want to send your children to the next best thing to a Nazi concentration camp, Christian private school is the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Way to go, Jasmine. You're going to ban it from YouTube because I had the AR-15 reference. Shooting kids and blowing up schools. America.
Nah, I wouldn't have.
Brought to you by the military industrial complex.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
like, I probably would have killed no, by killing somebody, I mean like a bully.
Let's completely ignore the fact that all the kids that have done the mass shootings were on heavy pharmaceutical drugs. But we're not going to go into that because the pharmaceutical companies pay big advertising sponsorship money to the mainstream media companies. And if those companies were to out them on their networks, then they'd lose that funding. So let's ignore the fact that these mass shooters were all doped up on mainstream pharmaceuticals. Let's ignore that out of existence. And, you know, yeah, there you go. Because the death care industry is your friend. It's like the meme I saw today where there was a mother holding up a sign that said, if I poison my kids, I'll go to jail. But if Monsanto poisons my kids, they'll get FDA approval.
Anti-vacciners are going to cause the new age plague. Oh, anti-vacciners are the reason why all these old diseases are coming back. It's all the anti-vaxxers. Those kids are dangerous. We need to force everybody to take vaccines to save the world, and nobody ought to have a choice. And you need mercury and formaldehyde.
Mercury's a vitamin, and so is formaldehyde. Because after all, even hemlock and arsenic in tiny amounts is nummy, not healthy. And if you think otherwise, you're a hateful, anti-health, nutjob, lunatic, who is a bigot and a racist, and whatever else that I want to pull out of my butt in my temper tantrum because I'm triggered.
Give my AR-15 a hug. It's triggered too.
I'm not retired. I'm a comic costume.
educational systems are your friend. I know my CBAs and 321s, and I can spell cat. K-A-T.
I live locally. You are our one and all. I'm going to start with a quote by William Wilberforce, and he stated, "You can choose to look away, but you can never say you don't know again." I just retired from a local hospital here. No one believes in the flu shots. My colleagues, I didn't. Because the efficacy, and I won't give you data, you created the data. 10% one year, 18% the next, 40% at best. The flu mist you gave to our children from 2 to 8 years for almost 4 years, it never worked. 3%. Oh, well. You know, I worked in a hospital where my colleagues, doctors and nurses and medical assistants and patient care and lab, we didn't believe in the flu shot. We were probably at 40%. And then came your mandates. And then came your recommendations. So you know what? For 4 years before I retired, I put a mask on, 12-hour shifts. It wasn't easy to breathe. But that's how much I didn't believe in your efficacy. My colleagues didn't believe in it either, but some of them couldn't wear that mask for 12 hours. So in the beginning, they said, I'm just getting the shot. I can't wear the mask. But in the truth, the public's truth, my observation, which is the first step in scientific theory, they didn't believe in your shot. This year, I retired. I'm grateful for that because my soul was sick at what I saw go on. That flu shot was crazy. At first, it was 10%. How can you do data? Which 10 got the shot out of 100? Then it was 30. And then you get up here today and make new implications on our children and combine 4. Really? You govern globally and this country. I'm glad I'm retired now because now I can talk to you. Because you know what? While I worked, I couldn't. Because if I did, conflict of interest, I would have lost my job. That's truth. A lot of my colleagues did lose their jobs. I was one of the few hospitals in this city that allowed us to mask. I can name 5 hospitals that don't. Goodbye, pink slip, no flu shot. How did I survive 20 years and never get the flu in that environment? ER, high volume. Was I not on the front lines? Every flu case, 300 people a day. Every flu case, it was me. I never had the flu. You know why? I knew how to wash my hands. I knew how to take vitamin D. I knew how to take elderberry syrup. I don't approve of your flu shot. Now you have pharmacists giving it. You bribe us with cards at Target and you tell us this is free and it's everywhere and get it, get it, get it. They're scare tactics and you should be ashamed. And then I will end because I do want my colleagues, the other moms that know what the CDC doesn't do for us. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he fights for us. He does. He goes to court for us, for our kids that suffered. I'm looking around. Some of you are my age. And if I'm mistaken, I apologize. But I'm in a generation where I got 7 shots. 26 years later, my daughter got 10. Her son got probably 60. My new grandson's expected to get 72, and I just watched you add more. I'm appalled. Robert Kennedy Jr., you know what he says? His family started Special Olympics. There were no autistic kids. He says that where the 40-year-olds wearing diapers with helmets on at the mall, if you misdiagnose them, if you missed them, because you say they're not vaccines, that they missed them. Where were the special ed classes when people with my generation, there weren't any, because they didn't exist. That's what he says. Do you know, and it's truth, but you know what's going to happen? I have a 10-year-old grandson, and I don't care what you say, that the autism and vaccines don't exist. It does, because I watched a perfectly healthy, beautiful 2-year-old get those shots and become a severe autistic child. And guess what? He will be 40, walking in the mall with a diaper on and a helmet. Thank you for the studies that you don't do.
I'm gonna get going, guys, because I need to chat with my mom.
Okay.
Okay.
But if you guys are still on, I'll pop on.
Okay.
It's all good.
Bye.
Well, thank you for speaking to the topics here, and love you, appreciate you. We will see you next time. And before you go, if any of our viewing audience who hasn't seen any of our other videos yet, maybe they're new, whatever, wants to hook up with you whatever sites that you have, list off some URLs and shit so people know where to get a hold of you.
All of that stuff is linkable through my website, Angel Eyes Art.
AngelEyesArt.com?
Yep.
Okay, so go there and you'll be able to get all the rest of the wonderful social media links and all that good stuff. So,
bye.
Bye. And then there were three.
So another thing I was gonna mention or slightly talk about is, since we're on the topic of vaccination, I've never ever been vaccinated, and this is an experience of mine saying that there are a bunch of people out there who really do not need to be vaccinated because their immune systems are already good enough, such as myself, because I've gotten, you hear these talk about getting everybody needs to get
Oh god, oh shit, you never been vaccinated, oh no, oh, start playing the air raid sirens, what do? Oh crap.
I hear this talk about.
Okay, I'm safe. I'm totally safe now. Stay away from me unvaccinated, you're not clean.
Hanukkah had vaccinated and my brain fell out.
You're not clean.
Brain fell out.
You're clean. You're very unclean.
Fuck.
You're very dangerous.
Boy.
You're unclean. Sound the air raid sirens. Here come the air raid sirens.
Anyway, we can talk now. Don't take the silence as a yes. So I hear all this talk about who everybody needs to get vaccinated for the flu, that everyone needs to get flu vaccinations or you're gonna die from the flu. And I'm sitting here thinking like, dude, I've literally never been vaccinated, yet I've had the flu like 20 times in my entire life. And not once have I gotten close to leaving the hospital or dying. Every time I've had the flu, I've been far from anything dangerous. Anything. Yeah.
Your air raid sirens. She hasn't been vaccinated. I don't know if y'all can hear that air raid siren.
I can hear it.
Fucking cover! She needs to be vaccinated! Put on your biological hazard suit! She's got every disease known to mankind!
I can probably get it coming through louder on my end if need be. Great siren.
I've gotten all kinds of sicknesses. Not once have I been close to needing to go to the hospital at all for anything.
We're such a silly, zany bunch. Get your vaccines. They're really good for you. I was actually
the only people who really need vaccinations are old people whose immune systems don't really work so well anymore. or basically just anyone with a poor immune system.
Whew, that thing's interesting. No spec, though. Real chemical biological gas mask. Old school.
Nice.
But I was on the European titer method, which was
Attention! Attention! There is an unvaccinated woman on the live stream! Retreat to your shelters! Unvaccinated woman on the live stream! This is
I gotta put my mask on, oh no!
Asshole! As a result of unvaccinated women walking around! Right! By your governmental corporate affiliates!
I bet the Chinese and the commies are invading too. They want to keep our kids unvaccinated. We can't have that. We need to eat more GMOs. The doctor said I might be pissing red, white, and blue, but I told him to shut his commie mouth because America. God bless America. Air raid siren simulation concluded.
There's something I want to say, kind of referring to, I think it's the last video you posted, you know, with all the Nazi crap.
Nazi?
Go back to bed, America! Your Nazi overlords are in control.
Sieg Heil! Sieg Heil!
Sieg Heil!
Nazis!
Nazis!
I want to see the animated film now. He's so new.
But I was on the European
Yeah,
titer method with vaccines. I didn't go with the FDA recommended dosages. Even when I was young, about 4 years old, they tried to test me for, on the autism spectrum and Asperger's and all that stuff, but they never found enough clarifiers to even say that I was on the spectrum. But it really kind of makes me curious to wonder if even getting on some of that spectrum was due to some of that, but makes me curious to know what might have happened otherwise.
God knows, maybe that's where my Tourette syndrome came from.
Maybe. But anyway, I guess I just want to say that I have a sister, little sister, like 12 years old, that tends to be very narcissistic and controlling even when she doesn't know it. So we just started having a joke about to joke about her being a Nazi.
Well, that kind of came from when she started professing that she's literally a Nazi and that her dad is literally Hitler, and posting it of like Hitler on a bus and saying, "That's my dad."
It was just like, I think I found my father.
It's like, the kind of Jamie's a cure.
Das Faser für dun dun Vergruppen Comrade.
I've got the authentic Nazi helmet.
I'm a communist and a fascist all in one. Don't ask questions.
Heil Fräulein Pure Jamie of the Fourth Reich.
Yeah, now, oftentimes when it's pretty obvious she's being narcissistic and controlling, I like to, kind of tease and have fun going, "Sie heißt Jimmy, sicher." We must do everything she says.
All in favor of gun control, raise your right hand.
And I've gotten my even younger sister I've started getting my even younger sister into it, whose birthday has just passed and she has turned 9, so happy birthday to her.
That reminds me, I really should insert the joke here. What does Harvey Weinstein like most about 28-year-olds? That there's money of them.
So yeah, it's like it's a joke, but it's kind of serious at the same time. About my sister Jamie being a Nazi.
I'm 8 years old. I get it. It's like, yeah, no kid, you don't. Not yet. When you get to be 13 and you really start to understand sexual innuendo, then you'll get it, and then you'll be like, ew! And then we're all going to be laughing at you because you finally got the implication. They were innocent. Now they're not.
She will never know.
Oh, she'll find out one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Don't underestimate a kid's curiosity.
Yeah. The only question is when that day is. And honestly, I don't want to find out. It's like, I want her to understand these things, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't want to usurp her little kid, her innocence.
Well, it is about 9 minutes past your desired bedtime.
Yes.
So we should probably wrap this up. So, closing comments and stuff. What websites can people find you? Because obviously you do art like that. So if anybody wants to watch your social media stuff, where can they find you?
Let's see. I am on DeviantArt. My username is StickerDoesStuff247, no spaces, and that is 24-7.
Sticker Does Stuff 24-7 on DeviantArt.
Yes.
And if anybody else wants to know more about me, generaltate.deviantart.com. And my name is Richard Hamilton. I'm also on Facebook.
And you all know where to find me, because if you're watching this, you're probably already there.
Speaking of this, I also have a YouTube channel, but I don't know how crap works.
Oh,
yet, so I wouldn't be able to
do what, Richard?
Oh, I was just going to say I am also on minds.com, minds.com/General Tate also. That's another social media site I need to really start revamping and pushing more of. I just haven't been thinking about it lately because I've been busy with a lot of other things.
You've also got to get on Gab, BitChute, and BitTube one of these days, too.
Indeed.
I'm also on a website called Quotev. I'm not sure how the URLs work yet. So I guess I can just get back on there and post the link.
I also forget that I'm also on Dailymotion as well. I'm on a few social media sites. I'm also on YouTube, but I don't really use it much just because of the censorship. But you know, USMC Tate on YouTube, and then of course, you know, General Tate also on Dailymotion. I use Dailymotion more often. There's a lot of aviation stuff on there.
I'm also on Discord.
Yeah, but there's no direct link for Discord. Like no way to really point anybody there.
Okay. Yeah.
Just General Tate on Discord, and of course.
Yeah, but that doesn't tell anybody anything. They can take that and put it into Discord that does fuck all.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So well.
You have to link them to Discord through another social media account. So.
Mm-hmm.
Like how we ended up in the Valerian Chronicles Discord server, which is how we ended up meeting Jasamine in the first place.
Mm-hmm. I met Dave first, and then I met Richard, and then Katerina.
And then somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's met Krista, she's met Kristen, Katerina, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So anyway, guess that's it for this PSEC episode. So, everybody have a good day, night, whatever it is in your part of the world. And anybody who is being offended by absolutely everything, hope we provided the public service of fuck out of you. And anybody who wasn't offended by this, awesome to you, more power to you as well. And see y'all next time. Later.
See you.
See ya.
You got it.
Hashtag triggered.